Hello gamers from around the world, this is Boxenberger, the video game enthusiast from Germany, and I would like to welcome you to today's episode of the World of Gaming. And I sure hope I did not screw up the audio again, like last week when we started the show and we were muted for 3 minutes, 4 minutes or so. But I sure hope we are good today. So welcome everyone. In the chat, of course, I see a lot of familiar faces here and names. It's awesome to see you guys. Thursday is one of my highlights of the week when I get to sit down, of course, with my beautiful co-host and some awesome guests we have, and of course, this amazing community. And today we have an awesome guest, someone we haven't had on for a while. Scott, man, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good, mate. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's been a little bit of time, hasn't it?
Yeah.
You had GPG. We had a little bit of a crossover episode back in, it would have been June after the Xbox summer showcase. That was a wonderful show. I think we were joined by Indy and TJ at the time. So
yes.
It's good to be back. It's been too long, mate. So appreciate you having me on.
No, I appreciate you taking the time and coming actually on. A lot has happened since June, not just in gaming, but of course also, sadly, the Green Pass Gaming podcast is no more. So when I saw that tweet and you said you miss podcasting, I had to reach out. So I'm glad you made it here, and we're gonna have an awesome show here today, man.
Yeah. Appreciate it, mate. I said, podcasting's a lot of fun, just chatting with you guys. And yeah, I've missed it since we last did a GPG. So I appreciate the invite, mate. It's gonna be a good show.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. Awesome stuff. And Dutch, my friend, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Yes. Been busy playing games, been busy with other things, but all is good.
That's fantastic.
So I'm looking forward to jumping into the conversations.
Indeed. And we have the very rare occasion that there was no midweek mix-up podcast yesterday. So it's really all fresh and we're going to discuss everything for the first time. So that is fantastic. Although we always try to keep... have different kind of topics here. We attempt to, but it's sometimes we attempt to indeed. All right, we will start with the show in a second. Just a little housekeeping here. Of course, I want to say again, welcome to everyone who listens here live with us. You guys are awesome. And if you could do us a favor, hit the like button. I would truly appreciate it. And if you're new to the program, consider subscribing, of course. And if you are listening on the podcast services around the globe, on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you're listening, it would be awesome of you guys to give us a 5-star. If you enjoy the show, at least a 5-star rating would be fantastic if you could help us out. Thank you, guys. And before we get to the games of the week, we already have the first super chat coming in from our generous friend, Drawn TJ. He says, hey, guys, did you see the dumbest article ever? The article says Ubisoft has canceled all games and they make dog food now. I have not, but... it sounds like the dumbest article ever. So, yeah, that's probably a good thing I haven't seen it. Man, thank you. And now we're going to have an awesome show here today with the games of the week. So, yeah, the thing is, Scott, you can't hear the jingles. Only people on YouTube can hear the jingles. So that's why we have
you need a way to feed it to us because Dutch misses out on them every week.
I know.
You must be good.
I know. I really tried to figure out how to do that. And Asa from Game Pass, Game on Daily, he has actually figured out a way. You have to install 3 different programs and set billion things in the menus of those programs. And then I tried that, but I'm just too stupid to do it. I couldn't get it working, so I gave up. But at some point I have to try again because it would be awesome if we could feed that audio back to us as well. So Yeah, but that's not what we want to talk about. We want to talk about, of course, about the games of the week, what we have been playing. We also want to hear from everyone in the chat. What has kept you busy? Scott, what have you been playing?
I mean, is it obvious? Is it not obvious?
It is.
The game of the moment, Hi-Fi Rush. That's obviously Dutch. We were saying in the green room there, you could talk about the game for hours as well. I think very much of the same opinion. I've completed it since it came out. Completed it just last night, actually.
Sweet.
Just an excellent, genuinely incredible game. Like I have very, very few faults with it. So that's been taking up the vast majority of my time. I've been dabbling in Monster Hunter Rise as well since that came to Game Pass. I like a little bit.
Oh, did you like it, or do you like it?
I do, yeah. I like a lot of the almost quality of life changes they made from World that have come across into Rise. I haven't played too much, maybe about 10, 15 hours or so. And I've started Dead Space this week as well. I was planning on starting it when it came out, but then Hi-Fi Rush came out and kind of took over. I'm one of those people who can only play one single-player game at a time.
Maybe two.
I can't play more than... I can't even play two.
Yeah, I mean, with the second one is then always for me like a multiplayer game or so. Yeah, so I have always one single player game, and then I have, of course, H4. So
I could play something like Slay the Spire or Monster Train or something on the side, a game like that. But so I've started Dead Space. I'm only about an hour into that. I didn't play the original actually back on the 360, so I'm experiencing Dead Space for the very first time. And I'm not going to lie, it's scared the shit out of me a few times already. It makes me feel really uneasy that game. So, but I'm looking forward to playing a bit more.
Always jealous when people play masterpieces for the first time.
Yeah.
I
did you get it, Dutch? Dead Space?
Not in the end. No, I've held off, but only because I've played the original. This is literally it's a
like
fresh
3 times or
paint.
so.
It looks gorgeous.
It does.
But I know exactly what I'm getting. I know exactly. I know the story. Granted, there's a few little bits here and there, like the Resident Evil remake, so they tweak a few things here and there. But ultimately, I've played it, so there's no massive rush for me. I've got Deliver Us Mars, which has come out today to play.
Same.
Yeah, I have, of course, Hogwarts, which is coming out very soon.
5 days. Which version did you get?
Just the standard for me.
The standard.
No deluxe.
So you have to wait like 3 days longer. I did. I gave in. I bought the super duper golden special mega deluxe edition, and now I get to play the game 3 days early.
Yeah, a lot of people have just for that, and you don't blame them. To be fair, you don't blame them.
Yeah.
But no, for me it's just the regular. There's that many games that are coming up that I'm trying to keep it just standard editions across the board. I think the only thing I'm probably going to end up spending on might be the expansion for Redfall, because that again, much like the Forza add-on, is only like 20 quid or something like that. As opposed
I think it's
to the
30 euros.
It might be 30 euros, so 20 something pounds. But that's all the expansions and add-ons and blah 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 blah. So I'll do that. Happily do that.
Does that give you early access like the Forza one did as well, Dutch?
I might do, but I haven't mentioned it yet.
Yeah, because I know there was a rumor that was going to have early access for April when the rumors about the May release date came out. So
if upgrading to the deluxe edition does that, like Forza did, I'm thinking a lot of people will buy it.
I agree, mate.
Agree. Although now we have Jedi Survivor at the end of April.
Yes.
We'll talk about it later, but it might interfere with an early launch of Redfall. So yeah, good stuff. So Dutch, what else have you been playing?
I was going to attempt to play Age of Empires last night and didn't get around to it. But I was going to try it on console. Much like you, I've played them all on PC.
Yeah.
But all I want to do is see, because everyone's ranting and raving about how good the controls are on console.
Oh, they are.
So I wanted to test that. I've got it installed and ready to rock and roll. So I think after this show, I'm gonna dive on and see what it's all about, see how good it is. But ultimately, I've been playing the hell out of Hi-Fi Rush. I didn't put that. I sent you guys the tweet when I finished it. I pretty much just conquered that thing as quickly as I could. Not because I wanted to get through it, but because I was just having that much fun. I just wanted to keep playing. And God, them last few levels, and we'll get into it properly, but them last few levels are just phenomenal fun.
Yes.
So
how many levels are there? I'm on track 6, I think.
I think you're halfway.
Yeah,
halfway.
I think it's 12 or 13 or something.
Yeah, I think it's 12. Yeah, I think it's 12. But I think like track 12 is just the final boss, if I remember right. I might be mistaken.
Yeah,
so
you know what?
12 is the final boss. 11 is also the final boss. Well, it's a second final boss. So you've got 2 boss stages back to back.
Yeah,
which is awesome. And then you've got stage 10, which I think stage 10 is the Prodigy level.
Okay.
Oh, the music in this game, man. The music in the game's awesome.
It is fantastic, man. It is really good. I love the game. It's not just a soundtrack, which is fantastic, but they somehow have found a really cool way to implement that rhythm-based combat system without making it too dependent on the rhythm of the game. So you don't really have to hit the beat of the music, but just a certain pattern, and that makes it, in comparison to Metal Hellsinger, significantly more accessible and easier to have like a good combo streak. I so love it, and it must be one of the best looking cell shaded games I have seen to date, honestly.
Without shadow of a doubt.
Yeah,
without shadow of a doubt.
That game is really a blast.
Yeah, I'm going to dive more into talking about Hi-Fi Rush when we get to the Hi-Fi Rush topic.
Sweet. Okay. So it's time to talk about Age of Empires then.
Yeah.
The world of welcome to the world of Age of Empires, your number one podcast where we discuss everything that Age of Empires has to offer, and it has to offer a lot this week. And I'm super excited to be able to talk about it. You
need an Age of Empires jingle, Boxy. If you don't have one already,
that's true.
You need a jingle just for Age of Empires.
You just need Wallalo when you talk about Age of Empires.
Yo, Wallalo.
Just remix it.
Has anyone seen the finals of Wallalo? The Red Bull sponsored Wallalo World Championship last fall? No. Did you guys see that? It was called Wallalo, a Red Bull event. And it was absolutely fantastic. It was like the finals of the World Championship in H4, and boy, were those good! These dudes, this is insane. That the skill level they have in H. But it must have been one of the best esports events I have seen to date. It was like so well moderated and like the editing. How they narrated the matches and everything, it was fantastic. Highly recommend for everyone to rewatch that. But yeah, H2 came out on console finally, and it is incredibly good. I have to say, like, that we were talking a lot about how will they be able to bring those controls to console, because certain RTS work on controllers, like, of course, Halo Wars, or especially Halo Wars 2, were fantastic on a controller, but they are significantly different than an Age of Empires, which is heavily based on not just building up your base and setting up your economy, but grouping units together, micromanaging those units and everything. And it is really hard to map down, and they somehow found a way to make it feel really natural. So if you spend, of course, you need a little time to master the controls, but you also need to do that with mouse and keyboard, honestly. I was truly surprised by how well they have implemented the controls. The game itself runs, of course, fantastic on the console, like with ultra high settings from PC, but of course you can tell at certain points that the game is a little dated, honestly. After I have played over the last year more than 500 hours in Age of Empires 4, and it has nothing to do with the controls or the console port, but you can really tell, of course, that there are some mechanics that are just a bit dated when you compare it to Age 4. Nevertheless, it's a lot of fun, and there's so much content in that game. It's 200 hours of campaign content, plus like, I don't know, what was it, like 300 maps or so, and 40 or 50 civilizations. That's so crazy. The sheer amount of content is insane and can be, of course, overwhelming. But it is a really good game, and I definitely recommend everyone who has waited or not played Age of Empires on console. Of course, if you have a PC at the moment, Age 4 is, in the year 2023, the better game. Simply more streamlined interfaces, some quality of life updates that they made towards or with the release of Age 4. And yeah, man, Season 4 is almost upon us in Age 4. I'm still trying to fight my way back to Platinum 1 rank in Age 4. I did that also this week. I just can't put the game down. I know people are sick of hearing it, but yeah. So I played, of course, a little Age 4. I'm this close to getting back to the Platinum rank. Hopefully gonna hit that tomorrow. So yeah, and then I want to finish out Season 4 with Season 3 with Platinum rank, and I cannot wait for Season 4 because they always do a fantastic job when they switch seasons. Has always been a big move. They also, in Age 4, they also updated the AI. The AI on Ultra Hard now plays on the same level like people play in the Emperor rank, which is the rank above Platinum, and then and that's like the pros from the World Championship League. Like, they have only very limited space. I only had the best 100 players play in that league. They have upgraded the AI so that it can compete with those people, and it's unbeatable for a regular dude like me. So there is a lot of things happening in Age of Empires, and I could go on for a long time, but I want to know from people in the chat, have you guys played it, Age 2 on console? I see RSJ fan, he says he's enjoying Age of Empires. Then Happy Cloud Gamer says the controllers are okay. He still prefers mouse and keyboard. Yeah, man, of course, in direct comparison, that's what it is. Phantos, sir.
Mouse and keyboard support, so.
Yeah, even on console. Even on console, yeah.
It's got good touch support on cloud as well. Dutch, you should check it out on your phone, mate. You should check it out. That'll be nice. Yeah. It's funny though. The one thing I think that I really wish they had done with this release is they've talked about it last year. Is they should have had mouse keyboard support for cloud with this release. In my opinion, they said it's coming. And it's not. I just thought this would have been the perfect game to have that with. Because then you can play it on any device with the mouse and keyboard. You don't need a beefy PC. Obviously, if you've got mouse and keyboard hooked up to your Xbox, you've got that option as well. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame that they didn't have that, but hopefully it comes soon. Maybe by the time Age 4 comes to console.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, man. So Paul in chat is playing Hifi Rush, and the Dead Space remake Phantos is gonna start Deliver Us Mars tonight. Yeah, man, I have downloaded it already, so can't wait. Kirby Louise says Hifi Rush and new emulators are all I need on my Xbox right now. Yeah, sweet. So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff to play right now. And Age 2 is definitely one of them on consoles, and of course Hifi Rush. I also played that. I think I'm in track 6 or 7 right now. So, but we will get to Hifi Rush a little later. Now, with all that out of the way, I think it's time to talk about the news of the week. There we go. All right. So, guys, we have a lot of awesome stuff to talk about. We will talk, of course, this week about, like we said, Hifi Rush. We will talk about Tomb Raider. We will talk about some interesting Xbox rumors. We will talk about Halo and its future in Unreal. We will talk about Jedi Survivor, some really interesting technical stuff of Dead Island 2. But first, Sony. Some Sony news, guys. Sony has released their earnings report earlier this morning. At least earlier this morning here in Germany. I don't know what it was in Japan. Probably yesterday evening. I don't know. And it looked pretty good for them, considering, of course, everything that has happened in the last quarter. So they sold 7.1 million PS5, or they shipped them over the holiday quarter, which is a massive boost of 82% year over year. They have 46.4 million PlayStation Plus subscribers, which went down 4%. They have 112 million monthly active users on PlayStation Network. And software sales or software units went down 7%, but the overall revenue went up 1%. So considering that they had some, or at least one massive launch in the holiday quarter last year, which was, of course, God of War Ragnarok, and the PS5 becoming available more often now. Are you guys surprised, Scott, about these numbers?
Not really. You've also got to remember the PS5 also became more expensive.
That's true
as well. God of War, obviously, they announced had 11 million copies sold as well, which is an extraordinary amount of copies. So I do recall seeing some speculation after Xbox revealed their, I guess, fair to say, lackluster financials, that maybe Sony would have something similar. But no, they've come out and they've obviously been able to address a lot of the issues around the supply chain, and they've got a significant amount of consoles out in that quarter. I think it's now 32 million consoles sold this generation. So it's still tracking a little bit behind PS4.
Shipped. It's not sold, it's shipped. They only
shipped. Yeah, I think it's 30 million.
Yeah.
I think they did say 30 million sold through. So I think there was 2 million still in transit of some variety. But I think they're excellent numbers. It shows that they're in a pretty healthy state. And if we were to compare them to Xbox, I think it just shows what having good first party console exclusives is going to do for your business.
Which brings up the question, can they keep it up this year? Because so far they have not really announced much outside of Spider-Man 2 Dutch. Do you think they can keep it up this year?
No.
Plain and simple. Okay, let's move on.
They think they will. They even upped their forecast, didn't they?
Yeah. On the first party front, I literally don't think that they've got anything else to release aside from Spider-Man this year, and I think they're intentionally doing that, which is why they've bolstered third party. And by that I mean third party exclusives. We're talking Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Final Fantasy 16 Forspoken, Spider-Man 2, among other things such as VR 2 and all of the VR titles. So I think they've set their goalposts out, said, listen, the developers aren't ready. If the developers aren't ready, we're not going to push them to be ready to have their games shipping this year. Neil Druckmann's already came out and said he's not going to show anything until it's absolutely ready, and even talk about it until it's pretty much ready now. Cory Barlog said pretty much identical last year. He said, I'm not going to even start talking about what I'm working on until it's like pretty much good to go, or not far off, like within a 6-month window. So no, I don't think they will have, outside of Spider-Man 2, which will hit this year, I think they will not have anything additional for first party. I think their focus is on now, as they've got their consoles ready to rock and roll this year. We see the adverts literally everywhere now for the PlayStation. I lost track. I was watching the Newcastle game the other night in the semi-final, and I lost track of the amount of PlayStation adverts I seen in the break.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's the same here in Germany, like everywhere you go.
Yeah. I live in a fairly small town, not too far from Dutch, for those who have picked up on the accent. And there was a giant Forspoken billboard in our town. I've never seen any gaming advertisements where I live until about a week ago. Just giant Forspoken advert just in this little town in the northeast. So yeah, they're ramping up, and they've got that new live on PS5 initiative. They've got going
live from PS5.
Well, so they're really ramping it up.
And on there, you can see the only games that are advertising on live on PS5 is Spider-Man, Final Fantasy, God of War, Horizon.
Yeah.
There's nothing else additional first-party wise they're even attempting to hint at. So I don't think for this year, I think that is the marketing campaign for this year, is live from PS5. That's if that's their thing and they're happy with just the one first party game this year, because they've already got exclusive titles from third parties that we definitely won't get. Like, we know at this point Square Enix is not releasing any of those Final Fantasy games on Xbox ever. Like, they're just not happening. So you pretty much count them anyway as PlayStation. You may as well count them as PlayStation first party at this point.
It's like Playground when they weren't part of Xbox.
Yeah, exactly. And it was only making Xbox games.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Dutch. I think that's their lineup. Early in the year's VR, middle of the year's Final Fantasy 16, end of the year Spider-Man, and I think they'll be happy with that.
And Rebirth if it makes it.
Yeah. They've said coming next. I'm sure that's 2020. I can't see a world where they release 16 and 7 Rebirth in the same year.
Same.
Personally,
when they announced 7 Rebirth and they said that 7 Part 3 would be out the year after, I was just like, absolutely not. This is Square Enix. That's never going to happen. There is, in no world are you going to finish 2 games back to back. You don't do it. Especially mainline Final Fantasies. It's took them the best part of a decade to get 7 Part 1 out. It's took them at least another 4 years to get 7 Part 2 out, and they're going to get 7 Part 3 out straight after that. Come on. Go ahead, Square. Pull the other leg. So no, I think... like I say, unlike Xbox last year, we had no first-party titles, none. We then had expansions. We had games that had been in development or in early access for a while that had released full-time, but we don't include that because it's been out for a year. I'm talking about Grounded specifically. You don't count those in. There wasn't anything first-party-wise that released there. And the exclusives we did get for Game Pass were timed exclusives. They're not full time, so people got them kind of a couple months later and things like that. So as much as Game Pass was eating well, there was nothing from that front, which is why Xbox got what essentially the grief that they deserved last year for a poor performance. But this year, I think Sony, having had a very strong year last year for releases, Horizon Forbidden West, God of War, Returnal, so on and so forth.
Returnal was the year before, but it was Gran Turismo.
That's the one.
Yeah.
I keep getting them mixed up. The big.
I mean, they are very similar games, Returnal and Gran Turismo.
It's very on par. But yeah, very, very good performance from them anyway. And it's unlike them to have these, what we would class as a year off, should we say. And this is as quiet as Sony's gonna get. And that's still releasing a major first-party game.
Plus a couple of good second-party exclusives.
Exactly.
That's true.
Yeah.
And I mean, from a Sony perspective, they can probably afford it. Spider-Man is massive, and besides that, third-party releases are going to be massive this year as well.
And we both know as well. We mentioned this a while back. We haven't seen Sony push marketing because the consoles weren't there. Yeah. Now they can push marketing, that can push God of War more, that can push Horizon more, that can push Spider-Man more. All of these games that people couldn't play or didn't want to pick up on the previous gen console and wanted to wait for PlayStation 5. Now they can shout about the fact that PlayStations are available now everywhere.
Yeah.
So then now the marketing push starts. So I'm wondering now if this is the beginning of Sony starting to pick up and start talking. I hope it is. There's one thing, and it's not just myself. There's a number of level-headed PlayStation guys are saying the same thing. Like, when are we going to start talking about the Sony first-party showcase?
Yeah.
Well, they completely skipped the showcase last year, didn't they? Which was a little bit of a surprise. People were maybe expecting later in the year, like they did in 2021, but no.
And we already hear that they are going to skip E3 also again this year, of course. So
I mean, they'd been skipping E3 for years, so I don't think that was too much of a surprise. I mean, they kind of jumped ship from E3 a number of years ago, didn't they? So, but that's when they started doing their own PlayStation showcases.
True.
Yeah, last year they just decided to give it a miss for one reason.
Indeed. Let me briefly shout out Fanto Sir, who has been a channel member for 6 months and sends in a channel super chat. Says, shout out to the Northeast Massive. I have no idea what that means, but my 2 British friends might be able to help me.
From the north of England, northeast of England specifically.
All right.
I mean, Dutch are probably about 20 minutes apart, something like that. I didn't realize Fando was from the northeast as well. So I was actually a little worried, Dutch, that if we got into it too much, that it might become a little bit inaudible for a lot of people. If the accents get stronger as you go along.
Start talking more Geordie as time went on.
Sweet. All right, guys, let's move on from the Sony earnings report and their lineup in 23. We already teased a little Hi-Fi Rush excitement earlier this week. In a report this week, we learned that in the debut week, even though Hi-Fi Rush is shadow dropped in Game Pass, it reportedly outperformed Forspoken on Steam. And it has and the surprise game from Microsoft has made more revenue than Square Enix title in its first week. Which is kind of crazy if you think about it. With no advertisement whatsoever for the game, like a shadow drop available for everyone in Game Pass, in quote unquote for free, of course. You have to pay for Game Pass, but you know what I mean. And it still has made more money than Forspoken in the first week. So, guys, Scott, let's start with you. It's crazy. We hear all the time Game Pass is bad for the developers. Listen, they're not gonna make the money back and stuff like that. Obviously, that's not true, and it also shows like how important the viral marketing aspect of Game Pass is, because everyone played it, everyone was like, this is amazing, and suddenly people start to buy the game on Steam or somewhere else. So what do you think?
Yeah, it's not a surprise whatsoever, Boxy, to be perfectly honest. It's kind of taken the world by storm a little bit, hasn't it? And as you say, it's almost that viral word of mouth marketing that's done the business for them. But it's funny you mention, we hear that Game Pass maybe isn't great for developers. The thing is, if you listen to developers and publishers, none of them actually say that. I'm yet to actually hear a developer that has actually said anything negative about Game Pass. Obviously, if you look in all the wrong places, you might see those comments. But generally, everything we hear from developers that Game Pass is great. And we know from the data that Microsoft gives us that Game Pass owners buy more games, play more games, spend more money compared to non-Game Pass subscribers. So I think it's fairly evident at this point that it's a plus, not just for us as consumers, but for publishers and developers as well. Hi-Fi Rush is an example where, particularly on PC, while you could get it in PC Game Pass, flown up the Steam charts. And one of the, I don't want to make too many comparisons to Forspoken because obviously they're vastly different games, but the Steam charts is revenue based and it's only $30 or $40. So it's had to have sold significantly more copies to be higher on that chart from a revenue
more
perspective.
Than double.
I think that just goes to show the power of that shadow drop. Now that's not going to work for every title, but it was perfect for this game. They absolutely nailed it here. And I'm glad they're reaping the rewards for it. It's probably one of the most exciting and cool things that Xbox have done in a bloody long time, in my opinion.
Absolutely. It was. I fully agree. It's a perfect way to get the excitement started for 2023.
Yeah.
Which obviously looks like a fantastic year for Xbox. So Dutch, I know you love it. You finished it once. You are in your second playthrough right now, trying to get all the collectibles and stuff. So tell us, is this the way to go forward for Microsoft to do releases like these shadow drops?
Yeah, I think not only the developers, I think Microsoft summed it up perfectly, and the marketing team. A few of the marketing team follow me as well, and they were saying the same thing. A couple of them worked on the kind of shadow drop for this, and they said, like, we've been working on this bit for a while, and obviously the decision to shadow drop it was something that they wanted to do and wanted to try out and see how it went. They said themselves, obviously, it's not going to be something that they do for every title, and it's not going to be something that will work for every game. But there are certain games in their catalog where this will be a test bed to see, okay, if this one of the littler projects, which it is, it's a side project, it's a small team within Tango that's done this, like 30, 40 people. If that works, then it absolutely makes sense to potentially do this in the future. And if you'd use it for games like your Pentiment, or you're Grounded, or your Hi-Fi Rush, or something like that, whatever the small projects are that these teams are working on, the passion projects, they are absolutely ideal, because viral marketing for them, I think, is the exact way it needs to be done. I think if this, and we spoke about this on the weekend, I think if this game had have released with a release window in front of it, a lot of people would have just forgot it with Dead Space and everything around the corner. I don't think people would have given it the time. I think because the shadow dropped it, because it was automatically trending that night, and it just randomly popped up on the Steam store, and people were like, what on earth is that? Then had a look at the trailer for it, seen it, thought, oh, that's cool, and it's only $30, I'm going to try that. And it was just 98.7% positive reviews out of thousands of reviews on Steam. Again, you mentioned it was like it was available on everything. So it could have got it on Epic Games, you could have got it on Steam, you could have got it on PC Game Pass, you could have got it just out the Microsoft Store, you could have got it on Xbox or Xbox Game Pass. But they chose to buy that game, and as they mentioned as well, sales-wise, it's sold more than double the copies. We know that by the fact that it outsold it in revenue, and it's more than double the cost for Forspoken than it is for Hi-Fi Rush. So there's more than double the amount of people have bought Hi-Fi Rush than they have Forspoken, which is a big title.
Crazy.
But also then the reviews back it up on every platform. It's like, and we don't usually talk about Metacritics, but when it comes to this, I think the key one that everyone was really chuffed for, and you could see it in Aaron Greenberg, John Johannes, all of the teams, the one that they were most chuffed for was IGN Japan. IGN Japan give it a perfect 10.
10.
Yeah, and they said it was a masterpiece. And that is the market they were absolutely trying to corner, and this is the franchise to corner the Japanese market. This is the perfect IP to conquer that market. It's got all of the anime looks, it's got the awesome cell shading, it's got the great characters, it's fun, it's got awesome music, and it's got likable IPs. It's got, like, I mean, look, you've got the cat 808. Like, immediately that everyone was just straight away saying that needs to be a new mascot, and the Japanese will absolutely love a giant cat, like a little robotic cat. Of course, they'll be all over that. But I spend time as well, and you go on to Xbox Japan's Xbox profile, the Twitter profile, just to see what the reactions of the Japanese fans were. And they were super surprised, and they were like, thank you so much for bringing this title out. It was like as a nice surprise, and absolutely loving it. And it's just across the board. There isn't a bad word to say about it. I've even spent time watching random YouTube channels kind of attempt to hate the game and then fail miserably.
Like
a lot of cynical people are like, oh, I've been told by my followers I've got to try and play this game, and I don't think I like it, and they start like trying to hate on it at the beginning of the video, and then by the end of it they're just like, no, I can't even hate it. It's just so fun.
It is.
It is.
Yeah. No, I think like everyone who outside of the occasional trolls, of course, I've not really seen any critique about the game. Everyone just seems to love it. Scott, what were you saying?
Yeah. I was just going to say, I mean, you really have to get very nitpicky to find any faults with it. Like, I could maybe say, like, I wish the economy was a little bit more generous. I could, some of the upgrades were a little expensive, but that's really, really picky at this point. But that shows the quality of the game that I'm having to look at such minor details. I tweeted about it when I completed it earlier in the week, and I said, I really can't find any faults. It's genuinely excellent. One of the best games I've played in a very, very long time.
And it's polished. I haven't encountered a single bug. Man, and in 23, that's something we have to applaud them for.
Rock solid 4K 60, no bugs, not a single patch required. There's been no reports of any required patches.
Yeah.
Like this is unheard of in modern day gaming that a game has come out and has not required any update.
Yeah, Series S version 1440p 60, rock solid, perfect as well.
Sweet.
It looks fantastic and plays fantastic on the Series S. They really have stumbled across something special, in my opinion. Like some people might think that's a bit, hyperbolic, but no, they genuinely have created something truly, truly remarkable, in my opinion. And interesting you mentioned the reviews, Dutch, because I kind of felt that this is a game where I saw people obviously scrambling to get reviews out. With the shadow drop, obviously you kind of have to, but I felt the reviews were pretty much irrelevant. The hype had already taken over by the time anyone could get the reviews out, and then the user reviews were hitting Steam. It didn't matter too much to a lot of people what IGN said or what GameSpot said. People were already excited, already jumping in and experiencing it for themselves and seeing what a good game is. It was interesting just to see that pan out, especially, again, I don't want to compare it to Forspoken too much, but if you compare the community reaction to Forspoken when the reviews started coming out and the diverse range of scores that game got, that became the story of Forspoken, not the game. Or the dialogue became the conversation around Forspoken because the reviews were sharing clips. Hi-Fi Rush, people weren't reading reviews, people were jumping in and playing it, and that's why I say it was kind of the perfect strategy for that game.
It's an interesting thought you bring up here.
I was going to say, add to that before you jump in there, Boxy. The one thing I would say is a testament to how good the game is this game was not given review copies to anybody. No one got a review copy. Nobody knew about the game, and yet reviewers still now are going out of their way, despite not requiring to put a review there because they didn't get a review copy. They're not inclined to write a review. All of them are going out there, and if you have a look at it, even daily now, there's new ones being added on, review in progress. They are enjoying the game so much that they feel the need that they have to put a review out for their site because I think it was them just saying, "No, we need to give it its dues." So I would say hats off to every review site, whether you're rating it high or low, if you're feeling the need to go out and create a review for a game that is already out and has been out for the last week and still putting your reviews out. That to me shows a testament to just how good the game is if you're wanting to put a review out like that.
I mean, it brings up the question if games that come to Game Pass actually need reviews. If you think about it, I mean, you could either read or watch a review, or just check it out yourself. And to what Scott was saying, and you as well, Dutch, is with reviews out in the wild, there's always a certain narrative attached to a game. Look at Horizon Forbidden West. When that game came out, it was like, oh, there are bugs. 2 or 3 reviewers mentioned the bugs, and suddenly this was the narrative. The game is a buggy mess, which was simply not true. It was like every open world game has its issues. It was okay. Then you have other games out there where you can make a similar case, but in this game, no one. Forspoken. So I don't know who of you two mentioned Forspoken with the cringy dialogues and everything. And now, no one no false narratives attached to not that I don't know about the narrative about Forspoken. I don't know if that's false, but you know what I mean. It's like simply gamers reviewing the game, which is what it should be. Like people you trust. Just if you go on Twitter or I don't know Instagram or TikTok or wherever, you just see people that they have a similar taste, and they just say, "Hey, I'm having fun with that game." Isn't that all you need as a review? So, yeah, I think Game Pass is. What do you think? Does this Game Pass lead to the fact that we probably don't need reviews?
I would say I would agree. Yeah, I think like I mentioned, the only thing about reviews was the fact that I think it's just testament to the game that these sites still want to, despite the fact that the game has dropped, like shadow dropped, and everyone's already played it by the time they're putting the reviews out. They still enjoy it that much that they just want to write one, as opposed to being kind of have to for their website clicks.
Yeah.
I think it's unlike every other time where they're given a game and they have to review it. They get a review copy and they assign someone to review the game. Like all the articles are from people that have went out of their way to try the game for themselves and are having that much fun. They want to write about it. That's like us going onto Twitter and giving essentially that's what it is in this case. Unlike a regular review, all of these are pointing to the fact that like I haven't even done this. I haven't even finished the game yet, but I'm having so much fun. I need to start writing up the review immediately, and I'm doing this and I'm doing this. And it's unlike like if games released like that, and then you got the reviews afterwards, because it was based on how they felt about the game in that moment, and they were playing the game, and they were like, "Oh well, I've played through it. It shadow dropped yesterday. I've had a chance to play such and such of hours, and I'm not sure how I feel about it, and so on and so forth." Like that's a genuine review, not like you're forced to go out and review. I think it's always a bit weird when you get a game key and you're forced to critique something that you've been given or assigned. Like if I got a game key and provided it to one of our guys to review, said I'll go and play that, and like write a review or come up with a review to put on a video thing. I would say a lot of the time that might be mildly biased because you might not be already interested in the game. You might have no things about it. You'd be like, okay, I've got to do this for work. There's a slight kind of work bias that goes by. It's work, so I'm going to play the game for work and kind of go into all the finite details about it and the nitty gritties and the wrongs and the rights and all of this stuff. And I think what's happened here is all of that's went out the window because it isn't an assigned task for work. It's a case of everyone's just going onto the game. They're not looking at it like too in depth. They're just focusing on being a gamer. And because they're just focusing on being a gamer, the reviews show how much they've enjoyed the game that they're playing, as opposed to critiquing it down to the last finite pixel and things like that, which is what a lot of them do. And this one's just, I think you are correct. I think specifically games like this do not require reviews. But the fact that they're still getting them I think is just testament to the work that they've put in.
Yeah, I agree with that final point, Dutch, actually. I think games like this, I don't think that would apply to all games.
Yeah.
I don't think Xbox could get away with not giving codes for something like Starfield.
Oh, yeah.
For example, you know? So I think for maybe small titles, it works because I think Hi-Fi Rush, whether it got a 7 or a 9 in Open Critic, I don't think really matters too much because the community narrative is already being spoken. You know, people are enjoying it regardless of critically what that game gets from the likes of IGN. But also there's a couple of points. In Indie Game, I mentioned one in the chat as well. One's obviously time. People's, you know, even if it's in Game Pass, you know, Hi-Fi Rush, again, that type of game, it's a bit smaller. But if it's going to take some investment, then you might want to maybe see, is this worth my time, or do I want to go check out a different game? But obviously, these games for people who aren't in the Game Pass ecosystem, they've got us now on Xbox. It's $70. for these games. So there's still that financial investment that people have got to make on PC if they're not on PC Game Pass, and on console if they're not on console Game Pass. So the reviews system still has some benefit there, I feel, because it's going to help people make informed choices. Game Pass for people who have it removes that risk, doesn't it? You can try it yourself, so you don't have to. But I still think there's a very large portion of consumers who need help maybe with their buying decisions, and reviews can still play an important part of that. I'm not saying it's the only thing, and I'm certainly like you guys, I'm not someone who really cares about OpenCritic or Metacritic or anything like that, but I think if you read reviews and you align yourself with somebody that you like or who has similar tastes, they can still prove to be a valuable resource, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
it does.
Yeah,
it does.
I think for me, as you mentioned there, and specifically, I think Boxy mentioned it as well. For the larger games like the Starfields and your Redfalls and things like that, you couldn't shadow drop those games because they're too big. And by big, I mean in terms of their size. So if you were wanting to get reviews or anything on there, you wouldn't see reviews for weeks or months.
Yeah.
Specifically Starfield, you're going to have at least. I would imagine people will start getting Starfield review keys 3 to 4 weeks in advance, minimum. I think, and it sounds ridiculous, but a game of that size will require that much of a head start for reviewers. There's no chance. I would, in fact, if you were giving somebody a key and said you've got a week to review Starfield, I'd be like, that's physically impossible.
It's
even if you play 40 hours mainline.
You're talking about like
40 hours.
They're 40 hours.
Just for this, if you just mainline the story, I think they've said that's
probably
40 to 50 hours. I think.
Yeah,
but obviously,
and then
that's not the game.
Yeah,
the game's everything else. Pretty much.
Side quests and whatever else is going on about it and things like that. So you're talking 70, 80 hours now. 78-hour working week, or if you put in the time like a regular fan would do for this game, you're talking 100+ hours working week in a week to get a review out. That's not including the editing and the and writing your script for the review
and everything. Not possible in a week to review it properly.
A game like this, which is 9 hours long, and as soon as you finish the game, you unlock everything separate, so you can kind of dabble in everything very quickly and get the dabbling out the way of to see what the other content's like. It's 10 hours, so it's like not even 2 days work to get the game finished. Start writing up your three. That is super quick. So it's the perfect size and style of game to shadow drop, and then if you want to review it, feel free to review it afterwards.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned about the timeline, Dutch, because even just that the timeline that reviewers get the codes becomes a story in itself. Where if reviewers don't start getting the codes until 3 days before release, everyone's thinking red flag. What's wrong with it? What are they hiding? Why aren't they giving us time? So it's funny that even just that itself, without the reviews, maybe indicates a confidence in the game. So, and there's been numerous examples of that. So I agree. I would like to think that Starfield's going to get a good couple of weeks. And people talk about things like the technical issues Bethesda games have had in the past. I think that'll probably be a big part of it, rightly or wrongly. And people will need time to be able to make those assessments. So yeah, fingers crossed they give the Starfield reviewers plenty of time. But yeah, not every game needs to have that sort of lead time.
Yeah, that's true. We shall see how much lead time the reviewers will get. Hopefully rather sooner than later.
When's it coming out, Boxy?
I'm in team before Redfall.
Oh, wow. Okay. Before Redfall.
Probably April. I know there's like Randall Thor. He was on our show last week. He officialized a cult that is led by Pong Soul, our brother, and he is on the team of the 23rd of March because Todd likes his dates. I'm not sure if that's gonna happen, but I still think it's gonna come before Redfall, because after Redfall it's really impossible, and that would mean they would move it to the second half of the year, and I don't think that they will do that.
I can say it being end of June.
I know.
I could see it being July or August.
I don't think
it's before Redfall. I don't think it's before Redfall.
I don't think
they'll
it's
get the final bit of. I think they'll get the final bit of marketing push at the showcase in June. I think it'll be like boom, coming out in 3 weeks.
I don't think so. I think if you think May is already full, of course, now with Redfall and Zelda is coming that month. So, and in June they have Diablo 4, which will probably be also first party by that time. So I don't think it's gonna be June. I don't think it's gonna be July or August either, because that's the summer. And yeah, you can release games nowadays during the summer, but not a game like Starfield. You want to have that incredible start and launch and push. So when do you realistically would have to move it to September or October? And I don't think they're gonna do that. That would be a shitstorm. And
there might be something else releasing at that point, which we'll talk about.
Exactly. So yeah, that's why I'm sticking with April, but we will find out hopefully soon. Guys, Tomb Raider. You guys a fan of Tomb Raider?
Not so much.
Scott, not so much.
Not so much.
All right.
I like the original. The reboots didn't do an awful lot.
Really? I love the reboots. The reboots are fantastic. So
I'm not saying that. I'd enjoyed them, but nothing special in my opinion.
So we learned last year that Crystal has been sold and is now owned by the Embracer Group. And there was something weird going on. Because they announced a couple of weeks ago that the publishing rights for the next Tomb Raider game landed with Amazon. Now, this week, due to a report that I pulled off from Video Game Chronicles, is the fact that Amazon wants to turn the Tomb Raider into a Marvel-like franchise. So they want to heavily invest in interconnected games, movies, and TV releases. And apparently, the IP costs were $600 million just for the Tomb Raider IP.
I think on that, I don't think it was $600 million. It was 600 million krona, because
okay.
Embracer, I believe, are Swedish.
Yeah.
So I believe it was 600 million krona, which is more like $60 million. Because it didn't make any sense. When I read the same headline box, I read $600 million. I was like, holy shit, Square Enix have just sold them for $300 million or whatever it was, along with a load of other stuff. Now, all of a sudden, that IP is worth 600.
Interesting.
I believe it is Swedish krona. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Dutch, I don't know if you've maybe read anything similar, but I was when I read $600 million, I started to sweat a little bit. I was like, what world am I in?
Because it was for me, it was like, geez, they made their money back quickly, because they only paid like $200 million for not just Tomb Raider, but the studio and all the other studios as well, and including all the other IP. So that makes sense. Anyways, are you guys excited to see what they can do? And is Tomb Raider the right franchise to do it? I'm gonna go with Dutch this time first. What do you think?
I'm excited for the game, but I'm not bothered about either the TV series or the films. The last film was okay, but much like the Uncharted film, it was okay. It was easy watching, but it wasn't anything outstanding. I don't think that could turn into anything outstanding either as a film or a TV series. They're certainly kind of entertaining enough, but is it going to be a mega draw? I don't think Tomb Raider has the mega draw appeal as it once did. It's a big IP, don't get us wrong, but it's not like your big blockbusters now. It's not the Last of Us. It's not a Gears or a Halo. It's not a Forza. It's not anything. It's not a game that is going to shift or do anything big. It's not to say that it won't, like the game itself and the series itself won't be extremely pretty, very well done, technically brilliant. The reboot, technically flawless, very well optimized, top to bottom. A lot of settings on by both PC and consoles in the end. Very stable, pretty looking game. Really good mechanics. Played really well. Competent enough story. So it's going to be a good game. I've got no doubt about that. But I don't think it's. I don't think it warrants a Marvel-like universe. I just don't. There's not enough in Tomb Raider to warrant a Marvel-like universe from a story perspective. As I mentioned the other day, like a bit like the Uncharted franchise, which they've mentioned is they're not doing any more of. As a treasure hunt kind of thing, you can always make more treasure hunt games because you just make up a treasure hunt. Like, oh, the lost ark of such and such, or the lost sword of such and such, or the lost shield of this, or the lost temple of this. You can just make up a random thing in a random place.
And they lost so many relics. It's amazing.
Lost everywhere. You can just make them up, like shipwrecks, or like sunken ships, or sunken planes, or anything. You could just make up a fantastical story and just go along with it. So the lore in itself, in terms of the game, you can do whatever with, because it's essentially open to whatever you want to do, whatever adventure you want to have.
Yeah.
That same applies to Indiana Jones. Again, it's always about finding something that's lost. Same with Uncharted. Again, it's a treasure game. So in terms of where the games can go, it's pretty much choose your own destiny kind of thing. Like, what kind of fantastical story do you want to create? In terms of TV series, though, I just think it's limited. I think it's very limited. Yes, you could do exactly the same as the game, but then I just don't think it. Personally, just don't think it warrants it. I think the games are enough. I don't think there's enough to go on outside of that. Like in the games,
the Marvel thing works because they have so many characters.
Yeah,
and the way how they described it is like they really want to have movies and TV series and games intertwined, and I don't think that's necessarily a good idea because you target different audiences. Someone who watches a Netflix show doesn't necessarily play games, and if you connect the stories too much, it just doesn't work. What do you think, Scott?
Yeah, I'm kind of in agreement with Dutch, to be honest. I'll be interested to see what the next Tomb Raider game looks like.
Yeah.
But in terms of movies and any other type of media, I've got very little interest, to be perfectly honest. Obviously, they've done, 3 movies now, I believe, maybe 4. I'm not too sure.
They did like a reboot movie with, because they did the Angelina Jolie movies.
That was the original, wasn't it?
That's what and then there was this one reboot movie. I forgot the name of the actress.
I don't see the appeal, to be honest. Now, obviously, they could mix it up and they could maybe create something fantastic, but as Dutch said, there's not really enough in that universe to compare it to a Marvel, where you've got such a deep, rich history of comics and characters to draw from. You've got a handful of games effectively to draw on. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with it. I guess whether it's a success or not is another matter entirely. I'll keep an eye out for the games, but the other transmedia stuff I'm not interested in an awful lot, unfortunately. But it'll be interesting to see what the game looks like. Because Shadow of the Tomb Raider the last one?
Yeah.
And that was 2018, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Something like so already 4 or 5 years removed from Shadow of the Tomb Raider. And so it'll be good to see.
We know it's going to be an Unreal Engine 5, which is a change as well. Yeah. Because the last one I don't think was on Unreal at all.
No, it was on the proprietary engine from Square. Yeah. So
So that's going to be interesting. I mean, Tomb Raider already, including Shadow of the Tomb Raider, looked beautiful.
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we hear that the game is apparently further along than people might think. We had some rumors that we might see it already this year, at least in an announcement or something.
Where do you think that shows up? If they do reveal it, do you think do you think Keighley's got it, or do you think maybe Xbox managed to pinch that one? But where do you think that one lands if it does get revealed this year? Is it big enough to warrant anything?
I think that's a Keighley. I think that's 100% a Keighley. I don't think, and it sounds weird because everybody wanted the Tomb Raider IP, but I don't think Xbox or PlayStation are interested in that IP now.
Yeah,
I don't think any of them think that the Tomb Raider IP has enough grounding these days, because we know originally Xbox got an exclusivity agreement for Tomb Raider on the first of the reboots, and that didn't really do anything.
That backfired, if anything, for Xbox, didn't it?
Yeah, and it didn't justify renewing that kind of exclusivity for the second or the third.
Yeah.
So it obviously for them it wasn't worthwhile investing that money in the Tomb Raider IP anymore. So
that is true.
I don't think they'll go for exclusivity, and PlayStation clearly haven't. They would have already spoke about that so far, because we know how many exclusivity agreements they've got in the pipeline.
I mean, they both have their treasure hunter games now, with Uncharted, obviously, and on the Sony side of things, and Indiana Jones on the Xbox side of things. So, yeah, it's probably a Keighley. I agree there. Interesting things happening with Tomb Raider. Like you guys said, it has always been a looker. So even if you're not a fan, I definitely want to see what it is. But I really enjoyed the trilogy, the reboot trilogy. So I can't wait to see. And it's gonna be a continuation of the games we had, of the trilogy we had. So not another reboot, and that is really cool to hear. A couple of other rumors are out there in the wild. It's time to talk about rumors, because Jeff Grubb had to say a lot this week. We learned actually earlier this week that Jeff Grubb is expecting Hellblade 2 to launch this year.
You see, when I say this, Boxy, it doesn't make headlines, and I've been saying it for months.
I know. Why is that? Why is that?
You need to grow like a big head of hair, Dutch. You know,
big mane and big mane
yeah,
of hair.
Yeah. It is weird. People should they should listen to us, because I said to you, Forza is not gonna come out in the first half of the year. No one wrote an article about that, and see where we are. So you said this about Hellblade. Scott, what do you think? Hellblade 2, is it gonna make the second half? Is it gonna be Xbox big fall game, like Jeff Grubb suggests?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned you guys talked about it. I joined Samuel Adams on the Exhibition podcast last weekend, and we were talking about the roadmap for the rest of this year, and we were speculating where Forza and where Starfield are going to land. And I said I don't, because a few people have maybe speculated that Starfield is going to slip to fall.
Yeah,
I don't think that's the case, because I said at the time I think Hellblade 2 is going to be their big fall game, and that's why I think Starfield would be sort of August, September. Forza maybe June, July, or maybe swap those two around however you want, with Redfall May and Minecraft Legends in April and Hi-Fi Rush in January. They've kind of kicked things off, and I think they'll try to spread them out. So yeah, I'm pretty hopeful that it lands this year. It's one of my most anticipated games from Xbox. Yeah. They kind of went quiet after the 2 Game Awards appearances.
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to that hopefully showing itself this year. And yeah, I would love to see that. Love to see that land this year. I'm pretty confident in that.
Yeah,
based on nothing, obviously. It's just
your
thought,
gut feeling.
I would love to see that land.
Yeah, I agree. That's I think it was October last year. We talked about here on the show that they finished the mocap for Hellblade 2. We said at the time, obviously, okay, so now mocap is finished. That implies, of course, that more or less the writing, story, and everything is also finished. Because if it isn't, I don't know how mocap can be finished. So, and now we hear from Jeff Grubb, and people write articles when Jeff says something for good reason. So yeah, man, what do you think? Hellblade this fall?
Yes, and I've still stood on it. I've been standing on it for a while now. I even said it last year. I said I can see this being a fall release of 23, and I'm still standing by it. I think the reason they were quiet at the Game Awards, the reason they didn't show it off at the Game Awards, is because I think they've already shown enough to get people give people a taster without showing off too much of it. I think when they do show off the game, which will be at the middle showcase this year, I think that's when they'll ramp up here's the combat, here's this, here's that. I think that's when they'll show it off properly. And I think, and at this point as well, I kind of trust the work that Ninja Theory do, having seen how they work in the background.
Yeah.
With the level of detail that they go into, and going to Iceland and Norway and things like that, and recording the environment both in terms of visually and as a sound, literally recording the ice cracking and things like that as it's melting, and the drips of ice and things like that they're doing, and the shifting of snow, like all of these little things that they're doing. Then it's going into how they prepare the clothing for the cast to wear, to literally doing a full mock-up of all of the outfits for the guys that are wearing them in a literal sense.
Yeah.
To then photorealistically scan those in so that the materials are identical to what they are in person as they are in the game. So I think the level of detail and the craftsmanship that they've put in behind it is exactly why this game is going to release this year. I think they talk when they need to talk, and they're quiet when they need to be quiet.
And you know what is exciting? They teased at the end of last year that the developer diaries are going to return this year. They tweeted about that. So yeah, they obviously
we'll see a little bit more of them, because I think what we haven't really seen in the dev diaries was the mocap work. So I think we'll see a lot of that footage would have been recorded previously. They just haven't come and got a chance to actually put these videos together. So I think a lot of these dev diaries are actually stuff that's probably pre-recorded as they've been working. Obviously, the only way you can do these dev diaries anyway is whilst you're working. Like, get all the footage together, and then we can talk about it afterwards.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's, to me, I think, as you mentioned on the mocap front, that is pretty much the last bit of the jigsaw. We know they've done all the material work. We know they've done all the photo mapping and photogrammetry work. We know they've done all the audio work. We know we've done. They're in the audio studio, or have done all the audio work. So right now, and we know they've done the combat work. That was pretty much one of the first things they did, with the guy who did all the sword fighting techniques for Star Wars, training them all. So we know how much work's went into that. So I think right now, it's absolute all hands on deck, polish, neaten up, tidy, get this game finished. This is what is happening this year. This year is being used as a polish phase, and it's going to release in the fall.
Yeah,
one of them very few studios within Xbox that I'm confident on. I think the work that they managed to pull off as a studio of, what was it, 20 odd people that
20
worked on
in the first
game,
one,
is just bonkers. It's like the level of detail they managed to put into that game, specifically on an old Unreal Engine.
It's crazy. It looked like,
from an audio perspective, like there is no other game, and that was an indie game. There is no other game that come close to that audio-wise for a very long time.
Called binaural audio. And in case people are interested, I made a video on how this actually works, because they have improved their binaural audio technology for Hellblade 2. Made a video about that, like, I don't know, 6 months ago or so, and it is super exciting technology. Yeah.
It's just, but it was just so ahead of its time. Like when people were like playing the game, they were like, "God, this is like eerie," but it's so brilliant in the way that it's done. This 3D audio, and hearing the whispers and like the audio all over the place. And we know as well from what they've said, they've only improved on that going forward. And you'll still have this like 3D audio, and you'll still have the whispers and things like that going on. And obviously now you've got the 3D audio from the environment that's included, that they've fully recorded. So yeah, it's one of the very few studios that you can rely upon. Playground Games, one of them. Ninja Theory for me is one of them. Coalition's one of them.
Obsidian.
One of them
we get to the coalition in a second,
yes.
but I agree. But
ultimately, yeah. What do you think then, Boxy?
Yeah, man, I agree with both of you. I think Hellblade 2 definitely has the potential to come out this year for multiple reasons, honestly. Simply for the fact that the last game came out in 2017, and I know there was the pandemic that slowed everything down, but at the end, like you said, Dutch, it's still a relatively small team. They said they more than doubled the amount of developers, but that leads them to like 50, around 50 is what they said, that they have now working on this one, which is still super small for a AAA game. If you look at other AAA games that are being developed with hundreds of developers, 50 people are small. It's a small team, and the fact is that smaller teams sometimes can work more efficient. They have less overhead. They have less stuff to do to align with others. They get just stuff done. And that's why you say they are so reliable, because they just get shit done. That's one side of things. The other side of things is that, of course, they have like huge ambitions for that game, but they have also shown quite a fair amount of things. That game was announced with its first trailer in 2019. Guys, that's like 4 years ago this year. Yeah. So then we have seen 2 years ago, or well, it's not 2 years ago, but in 2021, at the end of 2021, we have seen gameplay at the Game Awards. Yes, that was gameplay. That was part of the intro sequence, apparently. So in-game footage. From which other game of the Xbox first-party studios have we seen that? Outside, of course, of the games that are supposed to come out in the next, 4 months. No other studio. We haven't seen Fable. We haven't seen Avowed. We haven't seen, Perfect Dark, State of Decay. We have not seen any of those games. Indiana Jones, not even Contraband, nothing. They were confident enough. Okay, this is how the game is gonna look like. So they had to have at least a vertical slice that they are confident in, that this will be the quality of the game that we can see, and they've shown that 2 years ago. So at the end of 23, I think it's more than realistic that Hellblade 2 can come out. Again, Ninja Theory, very efficient, and there was a reason why they have shown that game along with the announcement of the Series X, because they know this is a showcase, and I don't think that this game was supposed to be years out away from the launch. Probably without the pandemic, we would have seen it within the first year or so.
Yeah, I was going to say, we know it literally ground to a halt because of no mocap.
Yeah, exactly.
We stopped it dead in its tracks because they couldn't do the mocap, and that was the key part of getting it kind of done.
Yeah. So now that this is all out of the way, I have the feeling that this has a very realistic chance to actually come out holiday this year, and it's gonna be awesome. It is gonna be a fantastic game. Let me briefly shout out the over 100 people that are watching us live here today. Awesome of you guys to drop by. Hope you guys enjoy the show, and if you do so, truly would appreciate you guys hitting the like button. It truly helps us out. We're a little show, so we are super humbled that more than 100 people tuned in here today. Also, of course, shout out to the people who listen on the podcast services around the globe. Appreciate you guys as well. So do us a favor, hit the like button, and we will talk about the next rumor, because Jeff Grubb wasn't done this week. He talked about the Coalition, and that the Coalition has canceled its smaller non-Gears project, along with another project, due to the layoffs that happened 2 weeks ago, 1 week, 2 weeks ago at Microsoft, and that the studio has now fully moved on to Gears 6, which is now full steam ahead. So, what do you guys think? Is this a realistic thing that they canceled this unannounced second project, but heavily rumored second project, and now Gears is the sole focus of the coalition? Scott, what do you think?
I'm a little torn, if I'm being honest, Boxy, because I was a big fan of Gears 5. I love what they did with Hivebusters, and I'm very excited for Gears 6.
Yeah.
But I was also really excited for a new IP from the coalition. Personally, I would love to have seen what they could do outside of the Gears universe.
Yeah.
I know maybe Gears fans maybe wouldn't agree with that. I know Stubbs was in the chat earlier. I know he's looking forward to Gears 6 more than anyone. But I was really, really looking forward to maybe seeing something a little bit different for them, because I genuinely think they're one of the top, maybe 2 studios that Xbox have got. And seeing them branch out from the Gears universe, despite the fact that I like that universe, was pretty exciting. And I was also hoping that would hopefully mean it came a little bit sooner if it was a smaller project. We've seen what some of their other studios have done with Grounded and Pentiment, when they've been given the creativity and the time to just create something a bit smaller. But these sorts of things, I suspect, happen all the time. There's probably loads of smaller projects that are being bandied about these studios that unfortunately never see the light of day. And if it is Gears 6 that they are now fully focused on, no, I can't wait for Gears 6. We just spoke about Hellblade 2 and how amazing that game's going to be on Unreal 5, and I think the coalition in Gears 6 is just going to create something pretty magical. I really like what they did with Gears 5, and obviously there's one particular story beat in that game that I'm curious how they follow that up with. But yeah, they've been given more time with Gears, which I think is the most important thing. It's not one of those games now where they've been given 1 to 2 years. They've been given, when was Gears 5 now? What's that? 2019, 2018 Gears 5? I can't remember now. It's been that
was
long
19.
So they've been given significantly longer now to hopefully create something new and fresh with that franchise, and I'm very excited, really, really excited.
I thought they did it with Gears 5. The problem with such an IP like Gears is you gotta stay true to the core, what made Gears great. But then you also have to come in with something fresh and new, and it kind of tried to do that with that open areas and some side quests, and some people were liking it, others were just shitting on it. That's not Gears anymore. It's kind of hard to continue an IP like that.
I don't think. See, I know they had those sort of semi-open areas, but in my opinion, I don't think they've really committed to trying to deviate from the initial or the original Gears formula. I think ultimately it just fell back to being what Gears of War is, which is no slight against the game. It was still an excellent game, and Gears of War is obviously an excellent franchise. But I don't think they were, whether it was confidence or whether they didn't want to piss off the fans, whatever it might be, I don't think they truly committed to trying something new with that franchise. And hopefully with the extra time they've been given, that's something that they can truly commit to and give us something completely fresh. But at the same time, like I say, that's difficult to do when you're working with an established franchise like Gears of War that's now 6 games deep, including Judgment. Or is it 6 or 7 when you bring in Judgment and Tactics and things like that? That's why I was excited for something new from the coalition, a new IP, because they could really spread their wings, show off their unbelievable technical chops on something completely brand new. But they're still the studio that works on Gears, and I'm still unbelievably excited for Gears 6. I hope they turn it back to Gears of War, though. I didn't like the change to Gears. I wanted it to be Gears of War 6. I don't want it to be Gears 6. I think.
Yeah,
I know that's a minor point. I want that of War back. It's Gears of War.
It's Gears of War. I agree on that. I didn't really get why they did it.
It was a Rod Ferguson thing, that, and obviously he's now started off to work on Diablo. So so hopefully they go back to Gears of War, and I know Stubbs would really like that as well. So I'll give him a shout out for that. So
shout out to Stubbs.
Does that get revealed this year, guys?
Yeah.
Is it a bit too soon?
That's a good question. I mean,
Jeff Grubble in the same interview said they've only started full development a year ago, so I think it's too soon.
I mean, when does that game come out then, Dutch? You know, like I say, Gears. So it was 2019 for.
I don't think
Gears
they
5.
take 6 years for the next Gears.
Oh, well, they've only started full development
just
last year, like within a year.
Yeah, but people sometimes take these kind of things out of context, because like full production of a game, when a studio goes into full production, Todd Howard himself said full production of Skyrim took them 1 year. 1 year was full production for a game like Skyrim. Like 8 years before that, they were post production. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of hard to pinpoint that down. I don't think that they started last year with Gears 6. I assume that they started full production, because what have they been doing the other 2 years?
Saying, yeah, full production started last year. But I do also think, given the way studios are given a little bit more, should we say, not freedom, but essentially studios now are saying we will show it when it's ready. I think the Coalition will very much do the same thing, which is why I'm saying 25, but also because of the slate of games coming up for Xbox over the next couple of years. There is absolutely no, as much as we want a Gears 6 sooner, there is no need to be forcing that game out sooner than 25 when you have Avowed and Fable and all of these other monster games still coming out, and your next Forza Horizon, which will inevitably come out next year or the year after. That's why I'm saying 25, and it's mainly to do with the catalogue of games we already know of. Like, if you're announcing Gears 6, there is no reason to rush that game through. There is not. You have a massive library of games that you've already got in the works.
It's true.
So I think you could do a little blurb, Gears of War 6 now in development, and then do like a boop. There you go. There's your pop. But then don't say nothing about dates. Just do your little pop as your little teaser at the end, like we got for Fable, like we got X. We know the Fable devs themselves. The game's being shown. People have seen it. They love it. But the Playground are saying, well, we don't want to show it yet, though. We're like, you might be happy with it, but we want to polish it up. And if that's the case, then let them. And we know one person that's working on it, has worked on it. No longer does now, because he's a contractor. And he said, no, it looks absolutely fantastic. He's got no issues on that front. It looks brilliant. And I trust that person. He's worked on multiple studios. So, but no, I think Gears 6, I think the one thing that I would like Gears to get back to, and I think most Gears fans will agree, is it needs to get back to the horror elements that made it so good in the first trilogy.
The first one.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It needs to get back to that little bit where you walk around the corner, and they need to introduce like interesting new creatures that have been morphed or changed or something. They need to just bring something a little bit fresh to that. That's a little bit different, because I think they start to go down the whole robotic route and this robotic army and stuff too much. And they've done that with a few games where they've kind of changed up. They did it in Halo, where they brought the Prometheans who hated it.
Yeah, the Prometheans.
I didn't really like the robots in Gears either. I thought that's not
the
what
robots
Gears
were not good.
About.
Yeah,
it wasn't what the game was about.
I like
I understand why they brought them in, because he wanted to create an army to fight against them that wasn't humans. But then they went rogue and they went bad and blah blah blah. But just take it back to its roots. Bring that horror element back.
Oh, I agree there. I just don't think I'm not sure if 25, like 6 years from the Coalition. The Coalition is like one of the very few Xbox studios that work efficiently. Like, they pump out a game every 3 years.
Yeah.
But Forza's the same. Forza's like 5 years since its last release.
6 almost.
Yeah, Forza kind of got the opportunity to reboot, and
I think that's what they said about Gears. They said like the next one will be essentially not a reboot, but it will be clean slate. Like, this is the next one. We're going to take enough time to make it a substantial jump, not just the next. Yeah, and that's what they said about Gears. We're having a break.
If they do it, I'm not against it. I'm just not sure if they do it. But you're right. The comparison with Forza is fair, Turn 10 has also been like a very efficient studio. They now take their time, which is obviously a good thing. And like you said, there's a lot of Xbox games coming. Although you could argue, of course, like about Fable, all these games, Starfield, are now RPGs, which I love. I personally love. But the Xbox is also kind of a shooter console. Yeah, so you kind of want to have like your shooter, and you need some diversity. So
I would
but we still have, and we have it, and Wolfenstein.
I agree on the shooter front. I think the difference between last time, though, is thankfully now they've got Bethesda, and in between those times we will get a new Doom, we'll get a new Wolfenstein, we'll get whatever else they're working on.
Quake, maybe.
There's so many shooters we've got on this console that it is a shooter machine. So we want Gears to come back. I understand.
And Call of Duty. Probably will have Call of Duty now as well. Let me shout out Dave Ramos. Let me shout out Dave Ramos, who sends in a $2 super chat. Thank you, man. And he says, could you loosely cover the phases of making a game? It's an interesting one. I think we have not.
Phase 1, idea.
Phase 2.
What do we make?
Pitch that idea.
Pitch the idea, I think it's as simple as the basic, going down to the square root of things. It's having an idea, much like this game. Like the idea, the ultimate idea, and the way they pitched the game Hi-Fi Rush specifically was the bar scene in Shaun of the Dead. That was how they pitched this. Like, this is what we've got, and it's in sync with the music, and they've got Queen in the background, and they're hitting the guy with the stuff. And it was the whole fact that it was in sync, hitting the guy to the music of, like, to Queen music in the background. It was like, that's the kind of thing that we want. This fun element, this kind of fun game, and it's going to be set in here, and it's going to do this. And it's the pitching the game is phase 1, coming up with the idea, pitching the game, and getting approval. That's phase 1.
And then a lot of stuff in early production is like building prototypes. You build prototypes for like basically everything, like combat prototypes or other gameplay mechanic prototypes to see what could work, what doesn't. And of course, there's also a lot of stuff going on in terms of scoping, like, do we want to make this an open world thing? Do we want to make certain parts linear? Do we want to make like this and that? And for those kind of things, you build prototypes, you bring in ideas, create ideas. And then, of course, you got to start, depending on the genre, of course. There are different stages for different genres. Not every game develops the same, obviously. Then you have like parts where you need to get the story rolling. Of course, if you're a heavily narrative-driven game, you got to start earlier than in other games, like a racing game. Obviously, it doesn't have that kind of phase. And then at a certain point, you go in full production, and that is where you bring in all the artists and like engineers, the people that make the like assets, from textures to trees to houses, I don't know, whatever. All these, and that's where you need the bulk of people. Then you bring in the audio engineers to the voice recordings, to the whatever, mocap, all this stuff. This is then now full production. You have the idea, you have an idea of the scope. Obviously, sometimes things still get moved around. And that's what is so hard to put out these vertical slices that we all want to see when we talk about, we want to see gameplay for, I don't know, Perfect Dark or a Fable. But in full production, you have certain people that work on the texture work, and then you have people that work on the audio, and you have people that work on, I don't know, the animations. And if you want to show something, you have to bring all that together. And that's not always an easy task if things are not finished. And then of course you go into polishing and testing. A lot of the testing is then done where you go to internal and external play testers. You need to get opinions. You need to find bugs. I think
otherwise known as QA.
QA, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And sometimes developers just let us pay full price, and then we are the playtesters. That also sometimes happens, but that's
Skull and bones.
exactly. So no, I think that's the thing, and that's why when a Todd Howard said it was a year, or I think he said like something like 15 months or so, around that, was full production for such a massive RPG. I think like that's really just they had like very good prototypes already, and then they were just building out the world. Yeah, okay, we need this and that, and then a lot of text.
Yeah, and on the word of the prototype as well, that is usually a playable like a playable kind of way they show off the idea more than what the game will look like. So the perfect example for that front is Sea of Thieves. Now, if you had
I was just thinking that, Dutch.
Yeah, watched Ray when they celebrated their birthday and the birthday of Sea of Thieves and things like that, they put out the video of Phil Spencer playing Sea of Thieves in its prototype stage, and it was literally just the flattest of water. Everyone was like weird googly animals and things like that because there was no real characters. And it was nothing really to it. It was just, this is the idea and this is the concept. What do you think of the concept of this game? And he was playing it and having fun, and there was an online thing, and they were playing together and map finding and things like that. Really basic stuff. Ultra basic, but enough to get an idea as to what route they wanted to go down. From that point, it's, yeah, the idea, I can understand, let's go. Yeah, that's
I think it was that playtest that really sold that Sea of Thieves as a concept to Xbox and to Rare, wasn't it, if I remember rightly? Because like the feedback that they got from that session, if you haven't seen it, I would absolutely recommend checking out, because it is fascinating to see, because it's a rare peek behind the curtain that we don't often get to see, I think. It's funny you mentioned, Dutch, oh, sorry, Boxboy, I think you mentioned like vertical slices for E3 and obviously how difficult they are to pull together. If you are interested in, I guess, reading a bit more about something like that, check out the story behind the Halo 2 E3 demo and how that was basically held together by duct tape, essentially. That's a really interesting insight into, I'm not going to pretend I know game development at all, but reading those stories, it's a really fascinating insight into what goes on just to pull one of those together and the impact it can actually have on a studio, and ultimately how the game didn't end up using any of those assets in the end anyway, because it just, none of that came together in the end. So yeah, if you're interested in that sort of thing, check out Sea Thieves prototype, check out the story behind the Halo 2 E3 demo, because they are really fascinating insights that I think are fairly rare for us to see.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And like I mentioned, I think development is different for every studio and every genre and type of game, and so there is no general formula. But I think at a certain point, almost every game goes through these kind of major steps. And for some, prototyping is fairly done quickly, and then full production takes a little longer. And for others, it's vice versa. And that's why I'm always like, when people say, "Oh, but they only started full production like last year," I was like, "Oh, okay. If they are efficient, hey, then we are super close to launch." That really depends. And it doesn't necessarily mean like that the game is years and years out. It can, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. So yeah, guys, you know what game had like a difficult development? That was Halo. Yeah, Dutch, it's time to talk about Halo again. I can see you rolling the eyes. I can see it.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. But I can see it because we now stream in 1440p, and I see every eyeball rolling now. So yeah, this week on Halo. This week we had a report. We've heard that rumor before, and now Bloomberg reported on that. But I don't want to quote that guy Jason, the lovely blogger who blogs everyone. No, I want to quote Chess from Windows Central because he said, I have a little bit more things to add upon what he has been reporting, what Jason has been reporting. So I'm going to report from him. And this is now directly from Windows Central. Shout out to them. He says, Microsoft 343 Industry apparently switches to Halo to Unreal Engine. Focus on multiplayer. A new report has detailed how 343 Industries is restructuring the Halo franchise following recent Microsoft layoffs. Reportedly, at least 95 developers were affected by the cuts. Notably, Halo is moving to Epic Games' Unreal Engine. Sources familiar with Halo Infinite's development have reported that its engine slipspace caused many issues for developers due to its aging code. This includes the delay of multiplayer modes like Extraction and Assault. The first project built on Unreal will be Project Tatanka, a codename game being developed by both 343 and Certain Affinity. Originally, Tatanka was believed to be a Battle Royale mode for Halo Infinite. 343 has also paused the active development of campaign-style story content for the time being. Developers were prototyping and pitching new Unreal-based Halo projects, but many of those developers have been cut. So, this was basically at least a good part of the article. Highly recommend for everyone to check it out for more details. So yeah, guys, Halo. I think the general agreement in the community is that Halo Infinite played and felt really good. I think we all agree upon that. Its core gameplay mechanics were good, but obviously they had a problem with their content pipeline. The game was designed, announced, and launched as a games as a service title, an ongoing live game, and it had literally basically nothing for an entire year except 2 maps, and then and still you could argue that the content is lackluster. Although now, of course, with Forge, some good stuff or good things have happened, but there's really no buzz around Halo anymore, and we've heard a couple of other stories as well, like people leaving and so on. And now we heard that the layoffs hit 343 especially hard, and now Halo is apparently moving over to Unreal Engine. You guys think that's a good idea? Scott, I know you have a lot to say on Halo, so please.
So there was, you might have seen in my face, there was a lot of pain as you were rereading that story, Boxy, because the prospect of no more Halo story content for some time is something that pains me quite a lot. I'm a little torn, if I'm being perfectly honest, because I do have, as a massive Halo fan, I do have concerns about how Halo will transition to an Unreal Engine game. Are they going to be able to retain that core feel of Halo that is very uniquely Halo? Can they replicate that on Unreal? And even within the reporting from Bloomberg themselves, if that's to be believed, even internal developers have concerns about whether Halo will feel like Halo on Unreal. Now, obviously, we won't know until we see it, but I think therein lies the first problem. Is it's going to be a long time before we see anything new from 343 when it comes to Halo, which pains me deeply, unfortunately. So I'm very skeptical about that transition, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. However, on the flip side, again, if that article's be believed, if this engine was preventing them from implementing basic modes like Assault, I think was quoted in that article, then it really signifies some very big fundamental issues with that engine that's really holding them back from making Halo Infinite the game that it could and should be. Game modes like Assault should have been in the game at launch, and it boggles the mind to think that the engine is preventing them from introducing a core mode that's been in Halo multiplayer since Halo 2. I might even Halo 1. So I'm torn, because if the engine is holding it back that much, then part of me is relieved that maybe this might allow them to create the Halo game that they wanted to create without being held back. But at the same time, I'm not too sure if it's going to be Halo anymore when it's on Unreal. I've seen a few people point to what was that Portal Halo game again? What was it called? It was basically Halo crossed with Portal. That was. Can you guys remember? I can't remember what it was called.
Oh,
I'm sure.
yeah, I remember that one.
You remember?
It was cool.
Yeah, a lot of people said, "Oh, this is just Halo Portal." It felt nothing like Halo. It didn't feel anywhere near as good as Halo, and that was an Unreal title. So I've seen a few people refer to that when hearing this news. It's like, no, that doesn't give me any confidence whatsoever that Halo can still be Halo on Unreal. Now the proof will be in the pudding with Tatanka, I guess, because that's going to be the next Halo project that we get. But if you look at some of the people in the community who, a lot of this stuff's data mined through APIs, it does seem that they were at least updating Tatanka on Slipspace as late as December last year. So if they're making that transition now, then when's Tatanka coming out? I was hoping Tatanka was going to be out as early as this year. But if they're going to transition to a new engine as of December, when's that going to come out? When's the next Halo story content going to come out? We're going to be talking another 5, 6, 7 years.
Probably launch title for the next gen.
Yeah, which Christ is honestly unbelievably disappointing from my perspective. Yeah,
Big V2.
Now,
Big V2.
Yeah, I mean the hope is, and I guess the rationale behind this transition is if the engine is holding them back, and if and there's been a lot of conversation in the chat about it as well. If the developers that they're bringing on maybe aren't familiar with that engine enough, and when they hire, whether it be full-time employees or contractors, they're going to be able to hire more people who are familiar with Unreal than they are with Slipspace, and that might help with their development pipeline. Whether that's the right move or not is another matter entirely. So the thing is, I'm really excited for the future of Halo Infinite. Season 3 is coming in March, and I can't wait for it. I'm currently doing my Legendary co-op playthrough with a friend. I think Halo Infinite's one of the best Halos that they've made. Live service, the shit's better a little bit.
What engine was Titanfall on?
Frostbite.
Ooh, was Titanfall not Source?
I think it was Frostbite. Hang on.
I'm not too sure. I don't think
the only game that really, to me, feels slightly like a Halo is the likes of Titanfall and Apex.
No, it was a modified Source engine. Yeah,
modified. I thought it was Source. See, I played a lot of Titanfall. I play a lot of Apex as well, and I really enjoy those games. But I think that's one of the good things about Halo, Dutch, is I think it's truly unique. It's almost out on its own in the shooter space. I don't think any shooter feels like it. I think Apex and Call of Duty have more in common, in my opinion, at least, than Halo.
I was just trying to wrap my head around if there's been a shooter on Unreal before.
Well, Gears, obviously not a first-person shooter, but third. But Unreal is not the most well-known shooter engine, but to the same point, it is also not the most well-known open world game engine, and a lot of open world games are now being built upon Unreal. Not just Xbox games like About, but we know that the next Witcher is gonna be that, and games like that on that kind of scale. So
I guess you've got like Unreal Tournament was probably, I imagine, was obviously built on earlier versions of Unreal. Unreal Championship on the original Xbox is one of my favorite multiplayer games of all time. But we're talking a long time ago. I can't think of any more recent examples of first-person shooters. Obviously, you've got Fortnite and games like that. But it just makes me really just skeptical of the future of the franchise, unfortunately. And the worst part about it, like I said, is whether I'm skeptical or not, it's just going to be an absolute age before I'm able to see whether I'm right or wrong, or whether my fears are realized, or whether I had nothing to worry about. Because I can't see a world where Tatanka is close if they're just making that engine switch as of late 2022. And then also that throws into question, apologies, I could literally rant about this for hours. Tatanka is meant to link into, or was originally meant to link into Halo Infinite. It was the cosmetics in Halo Infinite were going to transfer across. It was kind of like how Warzone and Call of Duty fit together. How is that going to work if Halo Infinite's on one engine and Tatanka's on a completely different engine. How does Forge work? They've just spent so much time and effort on Slipspace. They've got Forge, which is an unbelievable tool, regardless of any of Halo Infinite's problems. Are they now going to have to recreate Forge in Unreal? And people already had issues with Forge not being there at launch in Halo Infinite. But if they're going to have to create Forge from scratch once more, what's that going to mean for the launch of whatever the next Halo game is? What's that game going to have? So yeah, it leaves me with more questions than answers, and I honestly hope that 343 come out and address them in some way. I doubt they will, but I think we probably need something.
I'm not sure if I want them to. At this point, I think
in terms of getting Tatanka out there. And if Tatanka's on Unreal, then they don't have to say anything specifically. But if the Tatanka trailer comes on, it's powered by Unreal Engine, and then we at least can believe those rumors at that point. Because I guess there's still sort of unconfirmed reports for it right now. Yes, whether they will or whether they should is another matter, I guess. But as a Halo fan, I want to know what the future holds for Halo. I want to know what the future holds for Halo's story in particular. I'll watch the Halo TV show this year. I'm going to read the books that they've got scheduled for this year and next. But I want more Halo games. I want a continuation of the Infinite story. They left that game on a bloody cliffhanger, a pretty big cliffhanger, especially in the legendary ending. And the thing is, Halo Infinite had Atriox, which was introduced in Halo Wars 2, who's one of the best villains that has been in the Halo game. And yet, unfortunately, he wasn't really in the game. And that was kind of part of the excitement about what's going to come in the future stories, whether that be DLC or a sequel, is where does that story go? And now we're going to be, Xbox Series X2 or whatever it ends up being called before we get to realize that. And that's such a disappointing prospect.
Did you play the DLC of Halo Wars 2?
Yeah, Awakening the Nightmare was excellent.
With that,
really
with that ending and Atriox being teased for Halo Infinite, I was like, oh boy, that's going in the perfect direction. And now they left so much open. I agree there. That's what do you think? Halo on Unreal.
There's two fronts you would look at it. Unreal Engine, especially Unreal Engine 5, has so many tools available to it now that a competent developer would be able to make a very competent game and make it far quicker than you would have been able to on Slipspace.
Yeah.
You've got photogrammetry, you've got all of these huge open world assets in order to create these massive, hyper detailed worlds very quickly and populate them with awesome scenery and awesome areas as quickly as you want. One thing I had an issue with Halo Infinite, as much as I enjoyed the campaign, was the lack of biome diversity. It's just simply not in terms of the areas you can go down. Like you even mentioned, harkening back to the original Halo trilogy, they even had horror elements in the Halo trilogy, like seeing the flood for the first time. As we mentioned, one of the key things in Halo timeline was that time where you see the ODST go in and the Marines go in and they get attacked by the flood for the first time over, and you see the video feed, like the video camera feeds from the helmet cams and things like that. And there was like, oh God, what's going on here? And then running away from the flood for the first time, and there was a bit of like tensity about it. And again, they didn't have that moment. There wasn't like the foggy, misty, like swamp area that they had. There was no snow areas. It was just mountainous, grassy areas with bases on a section of like a huge ring, and we only saw a tiny segment of that ring, a tiny slither. That was like, it's nice being in an open world Halo, but this is such a small, like in the grand scheme of things, such a small area, and it felt smaller because there was no diversity in the scenery that you were experiencing. You were either indoors in Covenant held areas,
or Halo 5 had a significantly higher diversity in biomes. Yeah.
Exactly. Or you were outdoors and it was just Rocky Mountains, and you were in between Rocky Mountains all the times in just grassy areas. So
I think that was the hope for DLC, Dutch, was that they would take you to different parts of Zeta Halo and you would get the biomes from there. But if this report's to be believed, that was never the plan. The next story content was being prototyped on Unreal. There wasn't really any plans to continue the story within Halo Infinite itself, which that was also
ultimately, I would say to that as well. Ultimately, I think with a competent, and this I say this without trying to slander 343, because I don't want to slander individual developers or developers that are remaining there that are trying very hard to create a very good game. But ultimately, a competent developer using the Unreal Engine, of which there are many now, including the likes of the Coalition, who are extremely competent in Unreal Engine, would be able to put out a game with a lot of biodiversity, would be able to master or at least get the same feeling of the controls that you've got in Halo across on the new engine. Yes, it would take a lot of refinement to get the controls feeling the same, but that's the whole purpose of development. We need those controls to feel like they did, so we can do that. We'll spend a lot of time making sure those controls feel like Halo. It can be done. It just takes a lot of development. A lot of refinement, a lot of practice, testing. Okay, does this one feel Halo on Infinite? Right, okay, that's how that feels. Right, let's go back to this. Nah, still feels a little bit off. Right, we'll tweak this, and this. Get it to the point where it feels pretty much identical on both engines. Right, okay, you're set. You've got the gameplay, the feel of the Spartan down. Sweet. Then you've got the world creation. I think, judging by what we know of Unreal Engine 5 from all of the developers, and if anybody's watched Epic discuss the engine itself and how much is available to developers, I watch a lot of these things as well, the deep dives into the actual engine. There is so many tools available for people to create vast open worlds very quickly, and hyper detailed, and again photogrammetry, which they've included as well. I've forgotten the name of it, where there's a certain tool within it now that allows them to do these hyper detailed photogrammetry things, kind of
that
pretty much.
Nanite.
What was it?
Nanite? Nanite? Because they had Lumen and Nanite.
No, it was Lumen and Nanite, and there was another thing as well.
Was there another thing? Was there?
Yeah, it was specifically to do the engine and the generation of not only rock formations, but like set parts of scenery and things like that.
Yeah, I remember.
But the engine itself isn't the issue for me. It's the developers. Do I trust the developers to get it right on a new engine? That is, I don't know whether or not I trust 343 to be able to get it right on Unreal. Would I trust another developer to get it right on Unreal? Yes. Would I as soon as this game starts development on Unreal, would I get Coalition involved? Absolutely.
I see where you're going with this, and it's a fair point. It is a fair point.
Ultimately, the game, it will look better, it will run better, it will have less technical issues, it will be far easier to develop for. You'll be able to rapid expand with contractors and decrease through later parts of development a lot easier, because you're not trying to have to teach contractors a new engine that they've never ever worked on for the period of 6 months. So you spend a half of that time teaching them an engine, half that time fixing issues that they've done because they've never used the engine before. That's why there's so much of a development issue. Because we've got 343 was comprised of a lot of contractors, a lot of part-time workers that were not there permanently anyway, and most of them are being kicked off. And then, of course, you've got the full-time employees, and even then, there's no real streamlined management behind it. Any studio that's been working on Unreal Engine, the vast majority of studios, you don't see these kinds of issues you don't see these kinds of developmental issues with Unreal games too often, like you have seen with the likes of Halo and Slipspace and proprietary engines. There's a reason people really don't use proprietary engines that often, and that's because en masse for the industry, they're just so difficult to work with. So Osobo's got their own, and they do a very fine job in using that engine. Again, you've got EA with Frostbite.
They use it in-house. They don't rely on that many contractors.
Exactly. It's an in-house engine. They don't need contractors.
Yeah.
When you've got
Frostbite's an interesting example, Dutch, sorry to interrupt, because Frostbite is an example of an engine that they tried to basically get every developer to use, and it didn't work because it was. It's almost the opposite. It was an engine developed for Battlefield, and then they tried to use it on other titles, and
FIFA.
It didn't quite. It didn't quite have the desired effect. I think Mass Effect was Andromeda that used Frostbite as well, and this is almost like the other way round a little bit. It's like, well, that engine didn't work for those other genres, or at least they weren't able to get it to work then. In this case, can they get another engine to work for Halo? Yeah,
I think they can. I just think if it was any other competent developer working on a franchise and switching their engine, I would like if Insomniac decided to switch their engine. I would have absolutely no qualms about them being able to switch that engine and competently get it working and looking great on a new engine. Yeah. If the Coalition did that and for some reason switched from Unreal Engine, I have absolutely no qualms that the Coalition would be able to master a new engine and get it out and get a game out that's very competent. I've got no qualms with Playground Games being able to change from Unreal and do something else. I've got absolutely no qualms with a lot of big studios, a lot of very competent studios being able to do these things. But 343 have not shown any competency in the development.
That's a fair point. I mean, they have to earn a lot of trust, and I'm with you on one thing. We give them we give a lot of developers a lot.
It's not because of the talent of the developers. It's the studio.
It's the managers, how it's handled. It's how it is handled. And to be fair, that's an issue we have with many Xbox studios these days. There's only few studios where we don't hear at least rumors of issues. And 343, the way they have been managed, the way they have been handled, I think it's a fair point to say, okay, what does it matter to which engine they switch if they can't get their management and their priorities and the way of working right? And I think that's definitely a fair point. I mean, you touched upon a lot of things. My immediate thought when I read this was that I was asking myself, man, why don't they use idTech? The idTech engine is one of the, if not the best shooter engines in the world. They have that in-house now. Why not make it baseline for your in-house studios? I mean, obviously, Wolfenstein is made on that engine. Doom is made on that engine, so we know what it can do. Even the Call of Duty engine.
Was Rage on idTech or was Rage on something else?
Rage, I think it
Rage
was.
2 was on it.
Rage 2.
Yeah,
the first
Rage
one,
2,
I'm not sure.
Rage 2 is a perfect example of an open world environment on idTech.
Yeah. So,
which isn't something that a lot of id games are, because of course they're all kind of corridor shooters or things like that.
Yeah.
But that's a good example of what. But again, Rage 2, in terms of its environments and things, and a lot of diverse environments, but I don't think in terms of a visual perspective, it was overall glorious. In comparison to the likes of Wolfenstein or in comparison to the likes of Doom, etc., which were very highly polished, super sleek. Rage was not that.
That's true. So, what I was saying is, so idTech obviously would be like the choice for when you think about it, what they have in house. If you want to make a shooter, use it. But obviously, then there is this the other thing that you both mentioned: hiring talents from the industry, getting stuff out to contractors. Like Unreal became almost this kind of industry standard, where like everyone can teach himself. I mean, even I downloaded Unreal. I have the Unreal Engine on my PC installed. I fool around with stuff, and so it's definitely easier to find talent, to get people working in Unreal, in the Unreal Engine. Then on the other side, game of the scope of a Halo will require them to significantly make changes to the actual engine and write scripts and everything that they can use for their needs. So yeah, but I agree. Of course, Unreal is more or less an industry standard, and that helps for hiring talent. At the end, I'm with you, Dutch, on one thing though. The thing is, they need to get their priorities straight. I don't think that, honestly, that the guy who made the Slipspace engine and is now the studio head is the right choice. I just don't trust the man. I even forget his name.
I'm not too sure if that's. I'm pretty sure the lead engineer on Slipspace has since left 343 Boxy.
Wasn't
so?
No,
Pierre Heinz is the new studio head.
What Pierre Heinz, exactly. He was the lead of the technical team. So
I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the lead architect on Slipspace has left. I think he might have left around the same time Bonnie Ross left. But I guess if it's to be believed, it was Pierre's decision to switch to Unreal. Obviously, that decision's been made as him with as studio head.
That is at least true. Yeah. What I'm most getting at, they have a lot to prove. They have made some poor decisions in the past, and they were not able to correct them for a long time. You could argue they still haven't corrected them, so we don't know. So it really doesn't matter which engine you're using. If you can't handle and manage the studio right. What I do have my hopes in, though, is that Certain Affinity knows what they are doing. Certain Affinity has done fantastic work on Halo games before. They have also done great work on other games that they helped out with. So I'm looking forward to see what they do. But to Scott's point, the sad thing is we will probably have to wait for a long time. I think if they rescope Project Tatanka, whatever it was, to a new engine and probably not just Battle Royale now anymore, but a little more, I don't think we'll see Tatanka for a long time. And full proper new Halo with new story and everything is probably now far out. Hopefully that's what the franchise actually needs after this mess of Halo Infinite in its first 1.5 years after launch. So
the thing is, Boxy, just to touch on something you said there, because people are saying kind of like it maybe needs like change direction, things like that. Halo Infinite was 6 years in development. It was a soft reboot in itself. And now we're effectively maybe going to have another soft reboot.
I think this is more of a hard reboot this time.
I guess, that's probably fair.
Hard reboot,
If it was the soft and then, right, okay, that didn't work. So this is the hard reboot. So, but yeah, I don't think it's a franchise that should be going through reboots of any kind in the way that it's gone, because Infinite rebooted 5 because 5 was not particularly well received by the community for what they did with the story. Obviously, there'll always be arguments within the multiplayer community about decisions they made there. So they did the soft reboot there, and now they're going to hard reboot it potentially. Well, it is a hard reboot if they're going on a new engine. So yeah, the Halo shouldn't be
to be taken from it. I think in the long run, as opposed to the short run. I think in the long run, what you'll end up having on Unreal is a better performing game. You'll have a far prettier game. You'll have a game that, performance-wise, will probably push it way beyond what was capable on Slipspace. You will have a lot of additional benefits, like they were originally promised ray tracing, for crying out loud. That's never arrived and will never arrive.
It's coming this year, Dutch. Don't worry, it's coming.
Yeah.
Just like weather effects in single player as well. That was meant to be coming,
Yeah. So it's all of these things, though, coupled with kind of a lot of the tools that are available for this, vast tools that are available for this engine that will help development process going quicker. I think the development process once on Unreal will be far more streamlined. A lot of the developers that have came to 343 or in 343 currently will already be versed in Unreal very well. So it's not like they have to learn a new engine. The vast majority of developers industry-wide have been taught on Unreal as well as many other smaller ones. No one goes into a company, like if you've been versed in Unreal and you go over to EA and you start working on Frostbite, like you have to learn a whole new engine. If you go over to someone else, like Asobo, a whole new engine. If you go over to this Gorilla, you have to use Gorilla's engine, and like everyone's versed in Unreal. And unless you go into a company that has their own proprietary, the development process for an Unreal game is far more streamlined. So I think ultimately, in the long run, the benefits for this are the game will perform better, it will look better, it will have more options for developers to add new things that we haven't had before. Some of the tools that are available to them will allow them to streamline the process. There will be far less technical issues. I think the one worry you had, which I think is warranted, is Forge and how they would manage to make that. It was going to be. It will, of course.
Who says you can't rebuild a Forge in Unreal?
You can absolutely do it. I think it's just what they've spent a lot of time creating, and that might take a lot of rescripting. But I don't think the basic gameplay of a Halo would take that much to get into an Unreal. Where I think the creation of an engine essentially within an engine that allows you to place and remodel and resize and create maps from scratch in Unreal is a different story that could take some time, could take some significant time to get that right. Like, how do we create a game that creates a game within Unreal? We haven't seen that in an Unreal Engine yet from any studio. No one's. I think even Dreams wasn't on Unreal, was it? Was that not a proprietary engine?
Too sure.
Not really sure.
Yeah,
that's the only section I think on your worry is absolutely correct. I think from that front, I think the controls would take a bit of tweaking and getting right, and a lot of QA around the controls to get it feeling like a Halo. But I think they'll get there.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. Will they get it to feel like a Halo game? I mean, obviously we won't know until we get it, and I appreciate they might be able to, like, but I don't know. I'm just that's my biggest concern, Dutch, is like, will it still play and feel like Halo? You know, Halo's been on.
Do it, and again, as you would as any QA, essentially it's a side by side. Like when you're testing out the feel of a character and the feel of a game, what you have to have is a reference source, and the only way they can reference this is going, let's play Halo. Right, okay, so we're playing Halo, we're testing this. Okay, no, we need to tweak these settings. We know the settings on this engine is this, so on this engine, okay, we need to tweak this, this, and this. Now, how does that feel? No, he still feels a bit heavy. We need to tweak that a bit. No, he still feels a bit sluggish, so let's tweak this a little bit. It's going to take a lot of refinement, but ultimately, I think that's not an issue. I think it will get there, and it will feel like Halo. It will take time. Forge, I think, is the outlier. I think Forge might take a lot of work. That's going to be custom plugins, custom scripts, a lot of custom scripts to get that running. And it will take a lot of time to get it done. But I also agree on both of your assessments that this is a game that's probably the tail end of the generation, if not the beginning, or maybe even several months into, maybe a year into the next generation by the time we see it.
Yeah, that's rough, man. that's rough. Yeah,
it is. The weird thing to me is that Xbox allows us even to have these kind of conversation. It's their biggest IP. It's arguably one of the biggest IPs in gaming in general. In general. So, and them treating the IP like that we are at this point, and we have these kind of conversations for how long do we have, like, controversial Halo discussions right now, for many years. And that's actually the sad part about this. It is, again, one of the biggest IPs in gaming. The Chief is their mascot, and we're having so many controversies. And you guys both remember probably when Halo Infinite came out and we had that beta. that beta was a perfect testament and an example as to why Halo can be so special, because everyone in the community played Halo that week. Yeah, and it has brought the Xbox community together like no other game has.
And
Ever since.
I think Boxy, to your point there, to that specific point, when we were all playing that beta, those specific weekends, we were thinking, God, this is Halo.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is exactly what we've been looking forward to. This is. I am so excited for Halo. If this is what Halo feels like, if this is what Halo plays like, if this is what the multiplayer is going to be like, if this is what the franchise is going to be going forward, this is going to be phenomenal. This feels like what Halo felt like previously. This is what we loved about Halo. And then we know the rest of the story.
Yeah.
It was because we got so hyped and so happy at what we'd played in that beta, only to be further let down by the choices that they'd made after that and the development issues and so on and so forth, that it's put it into this path. So it's been essentially what happened before launch was hype, beta.
Yeah.
And then release campaign, still pretty high. Everyone relatively enjoyed the campaign. It was getting a lot of good ratings. And then the original, the first couple of weeks of multiplayer, still high. And then content delay, and then content delay, and then content delay, and then content delay, and then next season, and then season's been extended, and then Forge has been delayed, and then co-op's been pushed back, and then co-op's no longer on. Yeah, and then couch co-op has been cancelled, and we're only doing online co-op, and this is just continuing to drop with all of these things, and it's like you started off so well, so very well when you had this beta phase, and it just continued to fall from there, and it's just because they promised so much and failed to deliver. What a studio needs to stop doing, specifically 343 in the future, is do not promise don't say we're definitely going to have couch co-op and then scrap it. Couch co-op is integral to the Halo thing. It's been there all the time. Bonnie Ross. Integral. We need couch co-op. Cancelled.
Yeah, I agree. Guys, what a way.
I still play Halo most days, just for the record. I still fucking love that game. I really like it.
Gameplay-wise, it's still super fun.
Yeah.
Issues, just content. It's the content delivery for what they plan to do with a games as a service game. It is not a game as a service game.
I'm kind of hopeful that this year could be a little bit of a turning point from a content perspective. We got season 3 hit March. We've obviously had Forge, which is, I was going to say, breathe some new life into the community. I think it has, but I don't think it's had the impact on the player base that they wanted. They've hit seasonality, so season 3 will just be 3 months. Or at least that's what they've said. We'll see when season 3 launches, whether that's the case. So if that's the case, we should have season 3, season 4, and season 5 landing this year, and with each season's bringing new content, new maps, new mods. So this is actually potentially a really big year for Halo Infinite, a really exciting year for people who play Infinite, and I'm really excited to see where that goes. I just think it might be a little bit too little, too late for the player base. Are they going to be able to bring the players back? Because you mentioned that beta phase. I remember seeing the Steam charts and people say, "Look at how many people are playing on Steam, like concurrent 250,000 or more concurrent users." It blew up, and then it just dipped, and the seasons just haven't had any real impact. Maybe a very minor blip in those player bases. So maybe seasonality helps. But I personally thought the one thing that was going to really reinvigorate the player base of Halo Infinite was Tatanka, whatever that ended up being, whether it be Battle Royale or more like Warzone from Halo 5. But again, going back to what we said before, if that's now switching to Unreal, when's that going to reinvigorate the player base? It's not going to be this year. It might not even be next year. And then Halo's been out 3-4 years at that point, and then you release it.
And at the same time, a lot of other new exciting stuff is coming out, and it makes it harder and harder for people to go back.
I think at that point,
you'd have to be going back. I'm still there.
I was going to say, I think at that point, you'd have to release Tatanka as a separate game, like you would a Warzone or like you would an Apex Legends. You would just release Tatanka as, Halo, whatever the code name is, and just release that as just its own. Just ignore the fact that Infinite's there. Just release that as its separate thing and hype it up as a game in itself.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that, Dutch.
Agreed. All right, guys. Good talk. We are almost 2 hours, 2.5 hours into the show already. And Scott, do you have a couple of minutes? We promised you it's going to be a long show.
yeah, that's fine. I mean, we can keep chatting Halo, mate. We can keep going for hours. But
we could. But
she might want to wrap it up a little bit.
But we also have like amazing community questions, and I want to catch some of them. So yeah. That's why I want to move over to the community questions.
Ooh, you're so good. Every day I hear the words from you.
Are we getting the strawberry pizza question?
Oh, yeah. We're going to get the strawberry pizza question. We're going to get that. Indeed. So, yeah, guys, time for the community questions. So, like you guys know, each and every Wednesday you can write in on Twitter, Xbox, YouTube, wherever, PlayStation, and send in your community questions. Or, by the way, on the Discord, Dutch, we rarely shout out our fantastic Discord. We need to do that. So people, if you guys want to join our Discord, it's a fantastic channel. We have passionate community there. And people can also write in on Discord, of course, community questions. So this week's first one comes in from a sick mind, I have to say it. Jay, this one's from you. Our brother from the Netherlands writes in, do you like strawberries on pizza? Scott.
That's not a thing, is it? Like,
I don't know.
People don't do that. I mean, I know pineapple on pizza is a bit controversial.
There we go. Dutch has the answer. Let me briefly enlarge that. So, yeah.
But yeah,
no. Dutch, you're absolutely right. Time out here. So yeah, no, that's not a thing. And Jay, I know you were in the chat earlier. It's no, just no. All right, let's move on. Yanis Berry wrote in a question that we actually answered. So, but I want to give him a shout out. He asked about Starfield and Forza release dates, and Hellblade. And he mentions also Contraband. We didn't talk about Contraband, so let's talk. When do we expect Contraband to land?
Next year.
Next year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I think for me it's primarily down to focusing on when they're fitting in their first parties first, so what their first party lineup is, and then second party, and then third party. In terms of exclusivity mapping out, I think Contraband will be a case of, okay, let's map out where our first party is releasing first over the 23-24, and then fit in the second party. Okay, when's the second party releasing in there? It's an exclusive, of course. It's designed in conjunction with Xbox Game Studios publishing, but it's also not first party. Yeah. So I think it is going to be 24, but God knows when that will release. I think that's based on what the time frame is for every other first party IP first. But we don't know anything about it. We could see it this year though.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, it was weird when they announced it in 2020 or 21. Yep. They said that they have been working for more than 3 years on that game already. So it's been a while since since it's in development. So who knows? Maybe we get that this fall. So yeah. Then we have Holmetzi writing in. If you could have any game remade or remastered into a full-blown 4K 60 FPS AAA next-gen game, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a toughie.
Easy.
That's
Condemned.
Condemned?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah.
Out of all games, you choose Condemned.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah, Condemned released on the 360. It had its second game. Second game wasn't as the third game wasn't as liked. It was the second game was okay, but first game was fantastic. Really creepy game. Nothing had really done a game like that before. In the sense of like you're a detective, you're walking around with things, you have a flashlight, you can kind of grab anything to use as a weapon.
Yeah.
But instead of them being direct with the enemies and like coming at you, the enemies were far smarter. They were going to hide in these nooks and crannies and then like disappear off in the distance, and you'd never see them. And you'd be like, "Where the hell did they disappear?" And then they'd creep around the corner and just lamp you with a like an iron pole or something like that. And it was like all the mannequin section, like which stands out in my mind vividly when you like walking through like the areas, and there'd either be people dressed up as mannequins and you wouldn't know the difference, so you'd be just hitting mannequins to hope it was a person to kill whoever was there, or then you had that weird kind of weird kind of not ghosty segment, but like that area where the mannequins were like popping around you, and every time you moved, there would be like more mannequins, and then they'd surround you, and there'd be more of them, and then more of them, and they would just to the point where you were like kind of just running away. But every time you turned around from them, there'd be more gathering around you, and it was just so creepy, but so well done. I'd love to see Condemned come back, and I think what we've had so far, the remakes we're getting at the moment, I think Dead Space's a perfect example of a game that released back on the 360, where the original vision, and this is directly from the developers themselves who've played the remake now, was this is what we envisioned the game looking like and being like when we were making the game. So I'm glad you've remade it. You've done a fantastic job. This is how we envisaged it originally. Sorry. Whereas the likes of, I think personally, your Final Fantasy 7s and your 9s and things like that, as much as I want a remake, the way that they're going about the new remakes, etc., takes away from what the game originally was. It isn't the game that it was anymore. Like Final Fantasy Remake isn't like, it's got the same story, but from an actual gameplay point of view, it's nothing to do with Final Fantasy. It's nowhere near the same. It's an action game now. It's not a turn-based RPG. And that's the difference between an IP that I want remade or a classic that doesn't quite require it. You could do a pixel remaster, or you could do kind of Final Fantasy 7 in the graphic style of, for instance, Octopath Traveler. I think that kind of thing would be fantastic for the game if you turned it into that kind of graphical style. It would look beautiful. But ultimately, I think it's, for me, games that have, I think, specifically a lot of potential, and potentially that wasn't at the time be able to truly be recognized in that moment, or maybe it's just got left in the dust and it's become what was kind of known as a cult game. There's a lot of cult games out there that we'd love to have back. We'd love to see another Rise. We'd love to see another Order 1886. And Condemned, for me, falls into that category there, where it's one of these cult games that was fantastic. And everyone that you mentioned Condemned too, think, yeah, that was a really good game.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed my time with it. I wish we could get another Condemned. I think the only way to bring back Condemned would be to reboot it and start with doing what the Resi Evil team have done with Resi Evil 2, 3, 4, so on, and do it that style. Okay, let's bring it back up to date. Let's really put in what it should have envisioned like in the first place, with all these new technologies and the lighting effects and things like that, and this creepy 3D audio. Yeah.
Absolutely. Interesting choice. I did not expect that, honestly. Scott, what game would you love to see a full-blown remake?
Mine's already been remade. Splinter Cell, the OG on the original Xbox. Although unfortunately it's been made by Ubisoft. But still. So outside of that, a couple of Dreamcast classics, something like Skies of Arcadia.
Oh yeah, Skies of
Arcadia.
Arcadia.
A fan of that. Maybe like a Power Stone. That type of game. I guess that's maybe similar to the likes of Fusion Frenzy. Those types of games. It's difficult though, because I often find with remakes, it's difficult to capture the original kind of feel of them a lot of the time. Obviously, some of the Dutch brought up some great examples of where maybe they've changed it a little bit too much from how I remember and loved the originals. Final Fantasy VII being a great example of that. So as long as they stay faithful to the original vision of the game, something like Skies of Arcadia is one of my favorite JRPGs of all time. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah, give us like a special little VMU to go with it that only has the Skies of Arcadia mini games on it. But like I say, Splinter Cell is actually the remake Splinter Cell. It's by Ubisoft, so that dampens the hype a little bit. But the original Splinter Cell on the Xbox blew my mind back when I first got my Xbox. So I'm really, really excited for that.
Yeah. That's a good one. That's a good one. Shout out to Dave Ramos in the chat. He sends in $2 and says Eternal Darkness. That's a good one.
Good shout.
That was a good shout. Definitely. I played that on the GameCube, man.
I think I played that.
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was. So for me, I don't want to get game remade from like the 360 generation. If we do remakes, then let's do them properly and go way back. One of my all-time favorites, and it is a really old one, probably no one remembers it, was Secret of Evermore. I so loved that game. Still play it like every year. Do playthrough once a year. And now something.
I think he's accidentally refreshed his browser.
Hang on, then we're just gonna switch to an overlay. Hopefully he will be back soon. There we go. We have him back. No worries.
I pressed Control and R instead of Control and T when I was going to search for the game that Boxy Berger just mentioned. Apologies, Boxy.
No problem. So yeah, Secret of Evermore was fantastic, and I so love it. That would be a real cool remake.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You know what I'd love to see come back as well? Alone in the Dark. I think the only franchise that could go up against a revitalized Silent Hill and a revitalized Resident Evil franchise is Alone in the Dark. I'd love to see that game back.
Oh yeah.
I just don't play horror games, man, so I don't know a lot of these.
Yeah, good stuff here. All right, guys. I think that no, let's do one last community question, and before we let everyone go. So Steve, aka Xbox B, writes it and says, how do you find the time each week to plan and present a weekly podcast and do this whilst being a husband and father, playing games and working a full-time job? What are your secrets? Do you have superpowers to stop time or time travel? Yeah, I sometimes ask myself, I don't sleep much. I don't know about you guys. But it is hard to juggle everything. I mean, yeah, doing podcasts or running a YouTube channel and everything takes away from gaming time. That's just a fact. But doing the podcast or running the channel, also doing the videos, wish I could do them more often. But ever since I got a new job, time has been less for me. So that's why I simply do less videos, not because I don't like to do them. It's a matter of time. At the end, I love doing everything we do here. I love doing the podcast. We have an outstanding community. So I just try to find the time. I do a lot of the things in the evenings, of course.
Late evenings.
So yeah, because after coming home from work, I want to spend the little time I have with my kids, obviously. So yeah, and that takes away sleep and gaming time, obviously. But I love to do it. So how about you guys?
For me, it's exactly the same. It's late night because obviously you work during the day, late night. to do any editing or any overlays or things like that. Or sometimes I'll be able to get everything done like on a Saturday if there's nothing on, then I can just go right Saturday, loads of stuff, get this all done, this new intro, these new overlays, blah 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 blah, and I'll just rock out a load of stuff at the same time whilst I'm in that mood. And gaming wise, that's the difficult one because of course that's a different story entirely. Sometimes though, you might get into a little section where you say, okay, there's X, and X game out this week. We'll be talking about them. What I will do is I'll jump into kind of all of them for a brief, like a couple of hours of each one, get a good idea as to what the game feels like, what it looks like, etc. Enough to give a good impression of it or be able to talk about it at least. And then go from there. Unless there's very few games out, in which case then I can put a lot of time into a singular game and give a little bit more of an in-depth impression of what I think about it. But ultimately, it is hard to balance actually gaming. Like a couple of weeks back, we came on here and it was like, I've literally played nothing. The only reason I played a game this week was because I did a Sea of Thieves stream, which I do every Tuesday. Otherwise, I didn't have the time to do anything else. And you get those times. You get those times where it's literally just work, the podcast, and that's all you've got time for. And there's other times when you go work, okay, I've like yourself, I've got half an hour to play a quick game on Age. I'll do that. Or I've got half an hour to jump on Hi-Fi Rush and knock out a level or something quickly. It's just trying to balance. Sometimes you get more time, sometimes you get far less time. It depends on what happens.
Indeed.
Yeah.
How do you
balance it? Appreciate short games. Basically, High on Life being 10, 11 hours, perfect. Give me 50, 60-hour game. It's good. It's going to be tough. Obviously, I don't have a channel in the same way that you guys do, but the work that I did over with the GPG guys, I know how time consuming it is, how much hard work goes into it. And that's ultimately it. It's hard, but rewarding. So you do it because you enjoy doing it. You enjoy speaking with the community, speaking with the friends that you have on all the time. And you make the time because of that. And then ultimately just late nights. So if I'm playing games, it's late at night. I'll play like 9:30 till midnight. And then if I've got other time of the weekend, great. But yeah, otherwise it's bloody hard. And you guys deserve a lot of credit for the amount of work that you put into your channels, because it takes a lot of time, effort, and passion. So yeah, big up you guys for that, because I know it's pretty tough.
No, without the passion, if you're not having fun, you can't do it. It is absolutely not. It is sometimes like I wake up and only have slept like 3 hours or so because you needed to get something done for the channel, or you were stuck in a game because you haven't played the game and FOMO is real. So
I think the one thing me and you, Boxy, have got that is similar is you actually love creating the videos. You find the creative side of that is what you love. It's not specifically the content in the videos. It's the creative aspect of that. And I'm exactly the same. I love the creative aspect of creating the overlays, creating this, creating that, like coming up with new graphics and things for the show. Like that, the creative aspect behind it, I love, which is why I continue doing it. If you're not somebody who loves or enjoys doing those things behind the show,
you can't do it. Then
it becomes taxing. Then it becomes more of a labor than it is a love.
Absolutely. And it is a love because it is we have an amazing community, and I want to take that opportunity to say a big thank you to the community, not just for tuning in today, but in general for the support and everything you throw at us. It is because of you. You like Scott said, it is rewarding, and that's because of you. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's show. If you did so, please don't forget to hit the like button on the way out. But I also want to say a big thank you to Scott for joining us here today for almost 3 hours now. Which is awesome,
this is
man.
the longest show I've ever done. I can't recall going almost 3 hours before. Yeah, it's a long one. Loved it, Matt.
Thank you, man. Me too. That's what happens with good conversations, right? The time flies by. It was fantastic to have you on. So yeah, let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Boxy. Like I say, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you again for having me on. If you ever need to chat Halo again, hit me up. And yeah, you can catch me on Twitter at SX2 Gaming. So if you want to hear some bad takes on games, follow me over there.
Sweet. In case you want to find his link, I put the links to our guests in the description. So just click down below and you will find all the links to Scott and Dutch. What have you been coming up? I mean, people know where they can find you, so let people know what you're cooking up.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned before when the show started, we didn't have a podcast yesterday. That was mainly due to pretty much every panel member had a reason to not be able to make it, personal reasons. So unfortunately, it was just, thankfully, we could just postpone it a few days and just have it on later day. And that later day is tomorrow. Boxy might still not be able to due to work commitments and family and things like that, which is fine. If he arrives, terrific. Happy days. Full panel should be there. But otherwise, everybody else is around on Friday, so that should be awesome. Pick up where we left off there. And again, we've had a little bit more news since then, so of course we'll be talking about kind of as much of that new news as possible as well in there, which is good. So yes, other than every other week, which would be Wednesday for the midweek mix-up, this week it's Friday, same time, 7 p.m. UK, 2 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. for those in Europe. And no show this Sunday. Of course, usually we'd have a show every 2 Sundays. No show this Sunday, so it's a bit of a quieter one. But I might do a gameplay stream. You never know. I might do something like Age 2 on console or something like that. So we'll see. Or maybe Deliver Us Mars. I'll do a stream on that. But yes, you can find me everywhere at Wondering Dutch. Scott, it's been a pleasure. We need to get you on to one of the 2 shows over the next couple of weeks.
Would love it, man. Love it.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, we've got a few things coming up. We are going to have and redoing that again. We're originally going to have the team at Delilah coming on talking about Disney Illusion Land, which of course they've got coming exclusively to the Switch. Obviously the guys behind Battletoads, and that's going to be over in the coming weeks anyway, in line with their marketing plans. So we're going back and forth on that one, waiting for a date now, and hopefully have a few more developers and community guests on shortly as well. So yeah, keep an eye out.
Awesome, man. A lot of stuff coming. A lot of stuff coming on your channel. That's exciting, man. So yeah, again, thank you everyone for tuning in today. It was a blast as always. Also want to say a big thank you for the super chats and the support. Really appreciate that. Other than that, we're gonna have hopefully a very cool guest next week. He hasn't confirmed 100%, so something still might switch around. That's why I'm not teasing anything more than that. But yeah, for now, thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you the next time, and don't forget to game on.